Tactical Crouch, episode 190. Well, we're going to discuss quite a few things today. Recent news that's been happening around the Overwatch space and play-ins around the corners are literally coming in this weekend, by the way. That's going to be quite exciting, guys. So, lots to get through. My goodness, it's actually been a pretty solid week in terms of things happening around the space.
Yeah, weirdly positive in some ways a little negative, but exciting nonetheless. It's definitely kind of snuck up on me. Glad we're here. Am I the only one that kind of feels that way?
Yeah, it's like a bit of 50-50, you know.
Yeah.
Is your glass half full, is it half empty, you know, where are you at with all of that?
Yeah. Yeah, especially
Yiska
like
had some
because I had theoretically maybe we could have had me fly out for GG Recon to first Arlington and then LA.
Yeah.
And I mean that was a bummer that's not happening. And yeah.
Soon enough.
Same dude. Yeah. Same. There was zero chance. Yeah, there's been a lot happening. There's been a lot happening over the past week. Some of the most news in general in the Overwatch space that we've had in a while. And like very few of it official, but you know, it's just things, you know, it's just things happening in the space. Let's kick things off. We're gonna go through most of the news in this week, and then also we're going to be talking about plans, previews, and just about what we think the meta is going to be, what the matchups, what our thoughts are on the matchups are, stuff like that. So episode 190 here, guys, brought to you by Battle Crab, Refine Beam, Bronze Babuhal, Chare, Chris R34444, Fraudino, Hunter Tang, Casher67, Lolshin, Rexane, Zagurthalot, Wilma D, Sieskas, Orpa, Scented, Shower Gel, and Your Misery. Number one of the list, probably breaking news, is the Dexerto article written by Richard Lewis about Overwatch 2 related news, and this is where I think it is good news, isn't it, guys? I think that's the overall takeaway. I mean, we'll go through the Spark notes in just a hot second, but the overall takeaway I think is fairly positive in most respects, because it says, you know, I think the big message, if you only heard one thing from this entire article, if you read through it, if maybe you didn't read through it, but if you want like a TLDR that is just one bullet point, it's essentially that there is a rumored potential Overwatch 2 release date that is Q2 next year.
Yes. Some more validation to a lot of the rumors I think we kind of assumed regarding some franchises being a little disavowed, let's say, and what the market looks like in terms of buying a franchise slot, that is. But outside, yeah, I would say that for the majority, I would say the positives outweigh the negatives. And we'll obviously get into that, but I think there's a lot more to a Q2 release than I think people are kind of initially taking at face value, let's say.
Just get your initial thoughts on the article and just like the general contents. We'll break down a little bit more piece by piece some of the more interesting stuff in a bit, but
right.
Overall,
yeah, I think like once again, like that was just so much information on so many different topics that were covered. I think that it's even to the point where there's so much that we're probably not discussing a lot about the important topic. Like there were like 4 or 5 topics in there that
was packed
on any given week on normal Overwatch League week would be also the talk of the town, right? And now we are focusing, of course, the most important news, which is, I mean, the release date, which I mean, basically it's before summer, implying like possibly late Q2, and that this has been a process that just like has been suggested to the dev team that this needs to happen during that time window. I agree with that time window being necessary, just because it probably wasn't going to be feasible to have it do much longer. There are big question marks for me how this will roll out, though, because in terms of like the competitive integrity, how you even build a team, how you remain interest throughout that time, there's so many question marks, and as we heard, like not much is decided yet. That is something that they're discussing. There's going to be an owners meeting, according to the article, tomorrow. So
Right.
yeah, all of that is generally speaking more positive, also for me, than I anticipated.
Just getting an exact date. So tomorrow, obviously, depending on when you watch this episode,
Yes.
tomorrow, when we say tomorrow, we're talking about Thursday, September the 2nd, is when the owners meeting is supposed to take place according to the article. So I think generally focusing in on the release date for, or at least the rumored release date or the implied release date here, focusing on that topic before we move on anywhere else, and maybe even talking around that in terms of the implications. I think it's generally widely accepted that the initial response from the Metro leak, and we can, well, whatever his thing was, whether it's any bit accurate or not, maybe it's completely inaccurate, but the community response is that if Overwatch 2 were to be released in 2023, that would be awful. And I'm not just talking about competitive Overwatch players. I'm not just talking about people in the league, people that work around it, like myself or like my colleagues. I'm talking about even just like the casual player reception. Is that would be awful. Um, People that I know that stream this game, that just enjoy casually playing this game, they also would really find it to be pretty bad if the game came out in 2023 and it did not come out next year. So I think it was very clear across the board unanimously that the game kind of needs to come out next year because 2023 would be just ridiculous, right? So there was the initial, talks and rumors about, maybe the end of 2022, maybe, you know, quarter four, late quarter three, who knows, something like that. Quarter two is quite a shift up even from there. And let's be clear about something. That probably is like, I don't know if that's like, I don't know if there's a hard date set in stone. It probably isn't. I will guess and speculate that the rumored quarter two timeline is more of like, here's a target. And I wouldn't be surprised if that target maybe got pushed back. Maybe it's like, but it's still not quite there. Maybe just a couple things need tweaking. Gets pushed back to like early quarter three. I wouldn't be surprised, but that would still be earlier than like the late quarter three, early quarter four, or quarter four, generally speaking, that the original rumors from beforehand were kind of talking about. So it's still an improvement in that regard. And the feature lock part of that article, we're talking about the fact that Activision Blizzard basically came down into Team 4 and said, feature lock the game. We need to ship this game. Here's the timeline. I'm fairly certain, and maybe someone else can talk on this as well, that the whole feature locking thing is the internal milestone that got brought up in the quarterly earnings call.
Break that down a little bit because maybe I'm misunderstanding.
So in the quarterly earnings call for Activision Blizzard, they specifically stated publicly that the Overwatch team had reached a important, significant internal milestone for the development of Overwatch 2.
Okay.
But they didn't specify or detail what that is.
Right.
And my speculation is that internal milestone is that they had reached the point where they could feature lock the game, whether that's from executives top down saying no more, stop, feature lock now, or that's the team itself saying we're going to feature lock. It's probably more likely to be, pressure from higher up saying you have to feature lock the game, because otherwise you can scope creep the game forever, right? A lot of people are now looking at that as saying like, oh, well, this is clearly a bad thing because now we're going to get a half-baked game. The game's not going to be ready. That is somewhat of a valid concern. But the alternative to that is, like, when is the game ever going to be ready? Do you want a 2023 release then? Because I just said unanimously, pretty much everyone agrees that we can't wait for 2023 release. The game is just going to be, the game is sliding down a cliff currently as we're speaking, right, in terms of popularity and renown in the community and just everything, for a number of reasons. So yeah, like you also just can't let this game scale and snowball in terms of scope creep until the end of time, because then it's literally in development hell. There's a term for this. Games that just never come out. So the buck's got to stop somewhere.
It's probably better now than later, like you said. If it comes out any later, it'll be dead on arrival. If anything, I think feature locking probably, to take some grain of salt from what the rumor mill has churned out, I would gather that maybe some of the heroes that they wanted to give some overhauls to, some facelifts to, probably didn't get the love that they will need on release. But I'm sure that they, or at least hopefully, will be given that love as we progress into Overwatch 2. But what I see from this is news from or news on a beta coming out probably by the end of the year, if I had to say. Um, I don't think release
I'd be
wise,
surprised.
right? Again, to be very specific, I think news on a beta. So whether that's initial reports or maybe even Blizzard coming out and saying, "Look, like we're going to start putting out beta tests," or maybe even hearing some influencers and streamers talking about the game a little bit more, referencing maybe some play tests. I think that's where we're going to start getting into like the initial hype building phase that I think companies go through for games that are as sizable as Overwatch. So yeah, that's definitely a blip that I haven't heard many people talk about, but I think it's worth mentioning that I think beta's on its way, not anywhere near, but it's coming.
I'm not sure, like, based on how the article is phrased,
Mhm.
does it only imply that during that time, so Q2, the game has to be ship ready, or is that when theoretically a playable or highly playable beta could be released?
Can I give you the wording on the article? It says, and I quote, "Another source, a member of franchise management, also corroborated this version of events. We've all been told that the aim is Q2 next year. They informed us. The timing of the release will factor in the league schedule because obviously they don't want to switch game versions in the middle of a season."
Okay, so that implies release,
That
right?
and the corroborated this version of events. The events that they're talking about is specifically an internal Activision Blizzard source told Dexerto this was incorrect and added that getting the game out as soon as possible is now higher priority. What is incorrect is the 2023 stuff. I'm going to stop backtracking here and just move on. The quote itself, in terms of high priority release, is "We're more than aware we need to get it out," they said. So the word is the dev team has been told to lock in the features of the game. Sorry, lock in the features the game has, get it fixed, and get it shipped. We're looking to get it out before the summer of 2022. That's the direct quote from the article.
So I think one thing I have some concerns about is
Mm.
just from the timeline that we all know, it seems like I feel like the 5v5 idea specifically is something that wasn't specifically started to be designed in like 2017 when we started development on this
Oh,
game.
for sure. Yeah.
It's probably something that, I mean, we know it's been part of, or I guess I pretend to know that this was something that they already had during BlizzConline, based on the footage that they showed us, and barely ever, only on one occasion shown us a second tank playing against each other. So I think they toyed around with that idea at the time, probably didn't feel too secure if they were actually going to release that, because that's the perfect, like, BlizzConline would have been the perfect time to release that information and give you some new content if you were confident that you were going to go forward with that. So that implies to me that this is more something that is towards the later end of like the features. Now, is feature locking going to impact the refinement of the 5v5 for PvP specifically?
I think so. I think it might. That's my fear. My biggest concern is that they don't get 5v5 right.
Mhm.
Because that is, to me, more important, and maybe I have different priorities, more important than getting, let's say, the PvE right.
Yep.
Because they got more time to get the PvE right. Because, okay, maybe a couple things in PvE didn't go as well as planned. You could probably spend more time to fix that. You could probably release more PvE content. Stuff like enough PvE content as well. I think again, my priorities are heavily shifted towards PvP from an esports competitive point of view. Even though I myself would like to play the PvE, and I think I will quite enjoy the PvE.
Sure.
If the PvP of 5v5 is not good, you are not going to draw back in significant competition and people that want to take this game seriously as a competitive game. Because at that stage, what you have is a PvP that is not good and a PvE that is the focus. And now forever, like, this might as well just be not a PvP game. This might as well not be a competitive shooter. This might as well be any like player versus environment co-op shooter game out in the market, which there's plenty of, and not that there's anything wrong with that because I personally enjoy and play a lot of those. But
Mm.
forget about this being a good esport if that's what it ends up being.
Yeah.
I'm far more optimistic. I definitely understand where you're coming from. But I am significantly more optimistic in that regard. Not that they'll get 5v5 right. If anything, I'm very much in the boat that it's probably going to release pretty rough. But my heart says we did launch this game with no hero limit, and that was a core feature, and that was built like just driven into our skulls consistently, even at the competitive side of things for a long time.
I have a counterpoint.
Go ahead.
Is that well, you can finish first if you want. I just wanted to.
I mean, I think you can kind of connect the dots. Like, we have gone through very messy states. I don't think this is going to be so much of a mess that it's going to drive people away.
The counterpoint is that there was no historical evidence to look back on before that. For what I'm trying to say is like back in the whole no limits, there wasn't another Overwatch before that where like, oh, well, this is what my expectations are. You have no expectations. So coming into fresh Overwatch in beta or in like very early release when it was no limits, like there was no point of comparison. Like, oh man, 2-2 is so much better. I wish we had that again. No, that didn't exist yet.
Yep.
The problem now is that you will forever compare 5v5 to 6v6 because 6v6 is a thing that already exists and has existed for the entire duration of the game's life, and so that comparison to me doesn't work.
It's definitely not a direct comparison, and I agree. It will 100% live in the shadow of 6v6 and constantly be scrutinized
because there's a thing to compare it to, whereas there's nothing to compare no limits to because Overwatch didn't exist before then, right? That's the difference. And
you're gonna have people very much adamantly against it. You're gonna have people rationally criticizing the inherent flaws that it's going to release with, and I wholeheartedly believe there are going to be some glaring flaws. But I stand pretty firm that this game has gone through so many just bizarre changes, let's say, that I think that people are willing to stick it through.
Yeah.
I don't see it. Sure. It doesn't worry me that much. Let's say.
I agree on that. And I agree that there's been a number of big changes. It's not the fact that there is a big change, it's whether it can be executed on correctly. Because I am a big everyone should know I'm a big endorser of 5v5. I wasn't before. In fact, when Yiska had his whole 5v5 thing, and he rumored he's like, oh, maybe the game's 5v5. I'm like, that's ridiculous. There's no way the game can be 5v5. that would be so stupid. That would be such a bad move. But I grew into it. And believe it or not, like you can definitely switch sides. I swapped sides of the fence really quickly on that because I discovered actually I think 5v5 has a lot of benefits. But this is not a 5v5 discussion. The point about all of this is that feature locking most likely impacts 5v5 development more than anything else.
Agreed.
So I am all pro in terms of I'm all for the feature lock because I think the game needs to be locked up and you need to get a release window out there because you can't just work on this forever, ad nauseum. But unfortunately, the bit that is most impacted is probably the most important part. I do have a solution, and that is I do think beta helps a lot because the thing that will get this 5v5 balance correct, the most difficult part about 5v5 is the balance of the characters. How does everyone play and interact in a 5v5 environment with 2 less heroes overall? And the only way you can really grind through that to find the right solution is with a lot of gameplay, a lot of game time of various levels, professional, amateur, casual, whatever you want. And the only way to do that is through a long beta period, a lot of feedback. You need this beta out, like, I want to say January.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. Yes, at the end of this year.
I think that, but even when I say it needs to be January, I don't think it will be because I don't know that they can do it that soon. That's why I'm saying end of this year. Hopefully. Like, that sounds great, Joe, but I don't think they can do it that quickly. But they need a long beta period to test out all these things. That's how you balance 5v5 and get it ready for release.
The problem is there's a gigantic marketing issue there because, okay, here's my fear, right? You not only...
Do you think... Okay.
Dude, like, one thing we absolutely 100% have to, 100%, no questions asked, have to avoid is for Overwatch 2 to launch, for our pro players to get the game in their hands, and then the week after we're starting Overwatch League.
Oh, of course.
That is absolute clown shoes.
No way.
No way. Pants on head.
You can't do that. Now, here's the problem. unless this game is way further than in development than I personally believe,
Okay.
whatever beta you're putting out is going to not look or transport a message of confidence that this game needs in terms of a good news cycle.
Really?
I don't think that's likely to be the case. I think like the beta, whatever beta you're putting out, if it's not 100% polished at this point, it's going to be torn, right?
I agree, but at that stage, you're just releasing the game. At that stage, there is no beta. You just release the game because the only time it's going to be polished is the actual release of the game.
Right, but okay, so for various reasons, yes, we need a beta. We need a beta to to have the insight of the most like knowledgeable people in terms of the PvP portion, and you need the best teams to compete against each other, and you make that also attractive, which was another point of Richard's article, which was that there's going to be made a push for third-party events. You're not going to get anyone on for third-party events unless you're giving them beta access or like Overwatch 2 play, or you're giving them assurances that they will be part of the pie later on, which, by the way, would be a great idea, which we always advocated for. At some point, we will talk about how, like, go back to a 2017 podcast and see how 90% of the things we said was going to happen is exactly what happened. Like, everyone could have told you whatever is happening right now. But yeah, generally speaking, like, you need several months, not only for the game to be figured out, but for teams to figure out who is even good anymore. Like, I had a this tweet thread. Dude, if you think more than 30 players in this league will transition well into Overwatch 2, you're smoking good shit. It's not going to be the case. Tanks, almost everyone is gone. Already, name me the guys that can actually serve the full hero pool at this point.
Agreed. I 100% agree.
Now you're doubling their hero pool.
Yep.
And let's not forget, that's also another, like, we're apparently launching with 40 heroes.
Mm-hmm.
That's 8
Supposed
more
to be
than
3 added more.
8 more than we currently have. We have 32 heroes.
Yeah, Joe's counting in his head. He's like,
I don't think I believe that, if I'm going to be completely
I mean, that's a developer.
Why not? Why would you not believe that?
Yeah. Now, now think how much Break changed this game.
I'm
you got
with you.
8 of those guys. Dude, like, I don't know where this game is going. 5v5, I don't know where this game is going. Like,
100%.
New game mode, I don't know where this game is going, right?
Don't know what pushes, yes.
Dude,
agreed.
like...
we know what pushes, but...
I think, like, I'm confident that hyper-flexible DPS players will transition well. And probably hyper carries will even have more say in
We'll have to refine them.
But everyone else's job...
Anybody will transition well. You just need to be flexible. That's just period. Full stop.
Dude, you, like, if I'm a pro player, I'm getting, like... I'm trying to get, based on my reputation as a great flex support, let's say, I'm trying to get the 2+1 at least next year.
Yes.
Because, dude, I don't know if I'm good in 2 years. Nobody can tell me what the game even is. I don't even know if I will like the game at that point.
100%.
Can I love the game, Overwatch 1, Overwatch 2 the same way I can love Overwatch, can I love Overwatch 2 the same way I love Overwatch 1? I don't know. The game is 5v5 now. We're playing probably way more flanks. There's new heroes in there. We know we basically switched from like heavy hit scan dominated metas to speed MOBAs in 3D. Like from one season to another. This is the wildest esport to be in a pro player in. Like a zero like
probably the hardest as well.
And one
of the hardest games.
And then
I would say
like if all of that wasn't already like a strenuous process, it's not that you can lift yourself up by your own bootstraps and just grind yourself into being there. You gotta convince the gatekeepers that you're a good player. That's another thing. Like, I don't know if the general managers in the Overwatch League will be able to adapt as quickly to the
no, they're not.
the head coaches in order to see
God
who's
bless 'em.
actually going to hold up into Overwatch 2. None of this makes sense. We need half a year or something to figure this out accurately. Now, of course, nobody's going to care.
January beta
like,
into
owners and people from the game and people from the league ops, they will sit here, listen to the segment, and just go, "That's where we are." But that's not cool for 250 people working that job. It's just not cool. Like, think about how much churn there was already in Overwatch during the last couple of years. Like this feels like currently it feels like, okay, our veteran players are holding up. Okay, maybe we have figured something out, how to filter, and maybe we have the talent pool established now, or maybe we can't trade anyone because of COVID. Or maybe we're hard resetting all that progress that we've made in order to figure out how scouting works in this game by introducing 5v5, by introducing no game mode, by introducing 8 new heroes, hopefully also adding up to 6 heroes a year. Or like, I think you need 6 heroes a year in order to make this an exciting game.
That's a lot. Jesus Christ.
1 every 2.
Yeah, that's
like heroes are the content of this game. 3 years not enough.
I agree.
I'm sorry.
Can I be real with you?
With you there.
Is no longer the content of the game. The real content of the game is now just like more missions for PvE.
Yes.
Sure.
Let's be clear. That's the actual real content of the game that's going to be added in.
Sure, but you're not going to convince anyone to play PvP when a new PvE mission comes out. That's not how the player cycle works.
I can tell you right now that like if there's 6 eras coming out a year, I'm like overwhelmed. 1 every 2.
Yeah, it's terrible for competitive.
So many.
It's terrible for
sounds
competitive.
like so fucking many.
But dude,
I'm upset by how many agents come out in Valorant all the time. We're like, dude, there's way too many. They're coming out way too often.
But we're never going to foster a love for a game the way we fostered a love for CS, a love for what other games are like. Dota is not even part of that anymore because like we're changing a bunch of that as well. Like you're not. There's never going to be a game. I'm convinced at this point. There's never going to be a game that you can just not change and everyone's just going to love whatever it is. Not even CS is that way. This game, CS would have also died if we didn't have skins during the time and revitalized that, and then also had a great pro scene around it. It is like whatever you think. Like evergreen formulas don't exist anymore. Everyone is competing against novel stuff and absolute like churn level. Development. You can hate it, but that's what the consumer wants, and we've raised the consumer to want that. We're never going back. We need a development cycle that holds up to whatever competition, or we are going to lose.
There is a limit because you're not releasing 1 hero every day, 365 heroes per year.
Of course.
Like there is a limit where like, hey, even the most content hungry people like, hang on a second, slow the fuck down. I haven't swallowed the last hero yet. I'm still digesting, mate. I'm full at the moment. You know, I can't eat this much. Yeah, there's an appetite level. Yeah, there's a limit. So I don't know what the limit is. Could be 6 heroes, could be 20 heroes. I don't know what it is, but like there's quite even there. Think about this. Overwatch for its entire history. I don't know how many heroes we get per year. It was like 3 or something.
3 was the rough.
We got that. We got some maps. We got events and all that kind of good stuff. We got balanced patches, and then we had some big gameplay shifts like roadblock 2-2, etc. Right? We're talking about doubling. I think you're either speculating your scale, or you're just like putting out a wish list that you think it should be 6 heroes. That would be double the amount of heroes we used to get. On top of then developing PvE content. This is a lot of work. A gigantic amount of work. Like this sounds already way more than double the amount of work of what Overwatch 1 was as it was.
Yep.
So it sounds gargantuan. It
sounds Fortnite
like
level work. Sounds League level work. You get the pattern?
I would argue that League level of work is actually not that high. Like, yeah, they have a lot of champions that come out, but I play League. Most of the content is actually skins and events. And then they do 1 massive patch at the end of the year that does some sort of fundamental game update. And that's actually what I think
and introduce heroes.
Game update should be.
Or characters.
Introducing what, sorry?
Characters to the game.
Yes, they do that over the course of the year, but I don't actually know how many they do per year.
It's more than us for sure, but
I think it's more than 6.
0 currently.
It feels like more than 6. Maybe it's 6. I'm not
Google
sure.
It does feel a lot, but as you're kind of Googling that,
here's the thing. Real quick, just towards that specific point. it doesn't matter that it's less effort to get a League hero out than an Overwatch hero.
I didn't say that, by the way. That's not what I said.
No. I'm not saying like you created a game where it's much harder. You have the demand to always have a story and whatever that is cohesive. You need all the assets. You need to possibly like incorporate that long term into like whatever you want to create with that universe. But the way League is doing that decently as well. And yes, we have a 3D environment, and the interdependency of heroes are way more impactful for things to consider than it is the case in League. That doesn't matter to the consumer. You can cry about that, but in the end, you need that amount of novelty creation in order to compete with the other games. Maybe it's less than 6. Maybe it's just 3. I disagree that 3 would be enough. Nobody cares about maps, I think, in terms of
3.5.
Yes. Nobody cares about maps. I think people will care about PvE, but that's another topic for another day, which we've gone over quite a bit.
That's I once like maybe that's something that we will eventually have to discuss, where someone needs to explain to me how the content pipeline of PvE informs PvP.
100%.
But
something that we've completely missed, by the way, and that's that every single new hero that comes out actually impacts PvE.
Yeah,
because now that hero has to interact with the PvE as well. And the PvE balance is shifted from the interaction to
a new skill tree.
This is why 6 heroes a year just sounds dangerous.
I don't see it possible, but at the same time, like if you want people to be interested in, like, it's not going to happen. Let's say like 3 is possible, but yes, but then it will just shift to PvE. Are we just going to have like what's it called in
describe it
in World of Warcraft, the dungeon run? Speed run.
The MSI or the MDI, the Mythic Dungeon Invitational. Yeah. You will 100%. You will.
What if that's bigger than the Overwatch League?
It won't be.
But they get more content.
They, in some ways, yes, they get more content.
It won't be, and it can never be.
It can't
because
be. They won't let it be.
No, not even
Warzone
that,
shouldn't be. Can't be bigger than Call of Duty. It can never be, and we're never going.
Hang on. Let me actually say my point. Let me actually say my point. Well, Joe, it doesn't even have to get that far. The reason it will never be is because you don't have co-op PvE in and of itself attracts casual players. Not that there's any problem with that. You are not going to get enough competitive players in the PvE to even get that far. So forget about they won't let it happen. So, bro, they don't need to do anything. They could just sit back, like hands behind their fucking heads, and just don't even care about it. Just lounge out, because there's just not going to be enough competitive interest in the PvE to even get that far in the first place. Anyway,
someone put it in this. I'm predicting that this is a very real possibility that much more people care.
It's not a 0% chance, but it's
I think it's more likely to happen than not. That
I would disagree with.
There's going to be vastly more people playing the PvE portion. And I think there's vastly, for instance,
and the vast majority of them will not care about trying to play that competitively.
Yes. Just like,
but they will watch
overwhelmingly vast.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the comparison between Warzone and Call of Duty League is pretty apt here. Like, a ton of people.
PvE game.
Yeah, but
it's different.
Yeah, but it's a casual PvE game, and the viewership numbers of like if you have like streamers competing in that and have like those tournaments, they just shit on CDI. Right.
I 100%.
And like if you had
about battle royale's an established genre with like huge popularity from Fortnite and PUBG before that. We're talking about like Overwatch PvE is like Left 4 Dead. What is the genre? That's like the genre is Left 4 Dead. You're comparing a battle royale to this. We're not even in the same ballpark, mate.
The better comparison I think you aptly pointed out was MDI, and while it is like its own community of like hardcore PvE people, it does get some viewership, but it's not as big. Actually, I don't know if it's as big or if it's not as big.
If Overwatch had its own battle royale, then I might agree with you, Yiska. But I don't. You're telling me a Left 4 Dead PvE game mode in Overwatch 2 is going to be like competitively gigantic.
I think we will have races for world firsts when that thing comes out. And these are all going to be bigger than eventually than Overwatch.
This is very off topic though, because it's got nothing to do with the Dexerto article.
Okay, one thing I wanted to criticize or at least point out with Yiska's argument going into Overwatch 2 and how much it's going to be different. Looking at the gatekeepers and trying to appease them, right? It's impossible. We can agree to that. I think everybody at this, metaphorical roundtable agrees with that. So trying to, and I'm not attacking the scope of how many players you think will be removed. Obviously, you said like the 30 player mark, that's maybe a charitable estimate on how many people will be left. But if we agree that the coaches and GMs don't know what this game's going to be, what do you think they're going to base their information off of? What they have in front of them, right? What the history that they have in front of them. So yes, while I think there are some people that are going to be left by the wayside, some people who aren't going to like the game, I do not think it's plausible, or maybe call me pessimistic, but I don't trust these GMs enough, and I don't even think it's their fault, because this is such a new game.
No, it's
there's
not their
going
fault.
to be a lot of turnover.
Very true.
It's not
their fault.
It's not their fault at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay to be ignorant in that sense. Everybody's going to be ignorant.
Yes.
So you're going to bleed over a lot of people. You're going to have a lot of turnover. Or not a lot of turnover. You're not actually going to have too many turnovers.
Yes. What I mean is, like, there will be 30 players that transition well into Overwatch 2.
Yes.
There will be
that's
100 players or so that will actually transition into Overwatch 2, and it will be clown shoes for that reason.
Just like how it was clown shoes in season 1, right? They're going to be growing pains 100%. We're going to have to learn how to create that eye test again.
I mean,
it's going to be a little rough, and it'll grow.
I don't know it's going to be that bad.
If you think this season was the most competitive season ever in terms of like the qualities of teams, especially in the North American region, I agree with you. If you enjoy that, you're not going to find it in Overwatch League Season 5.
Do you want to hear a hot take? I think we're getting. I think the rise of the streamer pickup for Overwatch 2 is going to come back.
Yes.
Why is that a hot take?
I think there are there are a lot of people who are like so indoctrinated into the Overwatch League now, and there are a very vocal minority, to be fair, that they're going to shout down a lot of the like big streamer pickups that return, that are very popular, just like how they did in season 1. Obviously, I think.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. No, that is a hot take. No, I'm sorry, my bad. That is actually a hot take.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
The Seagulls, the Mendos, the IDD QDs coming in. They're big pickups.
I actually disagree. I think you admit it was a hot take, and I agree. But no, I don't think the teams will, because the teams still actually want to win. So no, that's not going to happen. So I don't think it's going to be a clown show. Actually, I think we're gonna prune out a lot of players. Okay. But what's left should be pretty good still. And if there's a long enough beta period where teams and players can get used to the game and find out what works and who's actually good, then that's going to be fine. We're going to talk about something that's kind of related right now. So so we can actually move stuff along and actually talk about the other stuff that we have on board at the moment. But the specific quote that I want to bring to attention in the Dexerto article is in relation to how this is going to impact next season's Overwatch League. We kind of talked a little in minor details about that and players transitioning over, but in terms of teams, the whole bit of this article that was quite interesting in regards to that is, let me just bring it up. Here it is. It's so we already mentioned there slated to be an ownership meeting slated to take place on Thursday, September 2nd. That's where they hope that plans for the league will be decided upon. And there's a lot of quote the article now. However, it won't be as simple as making a decision about dates. There are multiple factors at play, ranging from existing contracts, potential delays in Overwatch 2's developments, and further pandemic protocols. We need to make a decision before October, because that's what we do. That's when we do player contracts, a member of franchise management explained. Typically, players are on 1-year deals that run October to October. If players don't have anything to compete in until the middle of next year, then the thought is, why should we fit the salary bill for a stunted season? Renegotiations are going to have to take all this into account. So, end quote. So that is essentially the problem then becomes, well, depending on when the next season actually starts, pretty much all players go into free agency, don't they? Or like maybe they get retained on if you really want to keep your player. But realistically speaking, there's going to be a long enough break between the end of this season and the next season starting and the release date that contracts are going to be a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
Yep. I think again, there's a lot of tangential things to unpack from that. Um, Obviously, the league does not want to be stunted as long as it perhaps could be. Obviously, if reports are true and we do get a quarter two release, and maybe the projections for beta are a little less optimistic than what I'm giving them, I still think there's room to have, like the report mentions, third party tournaments run outside of the league itself to act as a buffer or to help bridge the gap. I think it's uh, nearly like I think this is probably one of the worst kept secrets that like there's going to be something outside of the league happening before 2022 season.
I mean, we've had third-party tournaments before. I mean, that's not a new thing.
The
But
thing
yeah.
is, yes, we had that. And the thing is, this was the pitch to people. I think Monty was very vocal about the fact that, like, this league was conceptualized as in you could have the franchise league, and then in the off season, third-party tournament organizers would be able to also host
Correct.
games
Yep.
around this.
That was the pitch, yes.
And that we never delivered upon that. I mean, maybe there was an interest because, like, at that point, it's sort of like picking scraps for those third-party tournaments. You got to make them a good deal. Like, yeah, and I mean, those assurances need to be amazing. Now, it is kind of a good situation for Blizzard in the sense that for third-party tournaments, I don't think it's easy out there at the moment in terms of finding games. Like, the Valve games that are very good for you to run as a third-party tournaments because like they're usually hands-off and you can run your product. You have to re-coordinate very little, as my understanding comparatively to like old productions of other esports. They are running out of steam. Like Dota 2 and CSGO don't have like they arguably are dropping out of tier 1 sometime soon. I would think in terms of viewership. Like they're not peaking at this time. They're definitely in decline viewership rise, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get much from Riot in that way. Yeah, like yes, as currently Valorant works that way, but they even they have started their
That'll change.
Their own circuits. We don't know what's going on with franchising there. So which games are you going to pick up? And an assurance by a Blizzard game to, especially one that, I mean, we all assume that, and I think it makes a lot of sense to think Overwatch 2 will at least initially be a huge smash hit. That's a good opportunity, but you gotta be willing to give more of the pie. You just gotta make assurances. I don't know, like it's heartbreaking, especially like think of organizations like, for instance, Take TV, who have supported this scene, have once again offered their ability and of
fucking
course
OGN.
yeah, I mean, okay, OGN is no more sadly, but like these are it's just very, I mean, OGN is probably, by the way, one of the best examples of just not being able to have access to the best or to games that could help them sustain themselves due to developers wanting more and more of a cut. So like letting loose there is just going to increase your pie and arguably is going to make you more money. And by the way, also, I mean, there's like 15 podcasts in 2017 where we said exactly that. Nobody learned anything of the last 4 years. None of the guys who hypothesized any differently had any good arguments at the time as well. So, yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting how they make it palatable. Because, for instance, Face It, throughout Overwatch history, has repeatedly tried to get in on the pie and has like poked around. Maybe they can do something like Pro Pugs, that type of stuff. They were in contact and it was always shut down. So, you gotta come to the table with a big pie in order to get those guys on. Once again, granted, like with the realization that these guys also will need like a bigger thing, right, for them to work.
I think that is. Go ahead, Evro.
I hate you guys, by the way, because I set a topic and then we just go off it. No, okay, but it's kind of related. It's kind of related to the whole contractual thing because we're talking about the fact that well, maybe third-party events can can placate it a little bit. We can sort of tide it over third party events. Specifically in the article, just to give context to this, is I quote, the report states the Overwatch League is assessing its options for 2022, including a potential extended off-season following the 2021 season and interim events that could include non-season based tournaments amid the uncertainty of the release calendar for Overwatch 2. Spectre did not react to his report. What's funny, the source said, is that there's also a strong likelihood these events are run in partnership with all the third-party operators we've isolated ourselves from over the first game's life cycle. We're hoping the excitement around Overwatch 2 is significant enough that they are willing to let bygones be bygones. First of all, I can speculate that that's pretty easy to do because I think everyone wants to make money, and if there was an opportunity for a third party to profit off this, oh, they would. Because Overwatch 2, I agree, Yiska, in theory, should be a banger. It should drop. It should be incredibly good on release, at least in terms of popularity. And everyone wants a slice of that pie. If you're a third party operator, you want to dig in and get some viewership, and you want to get some sponsorship, and you want to get some revenue out of this, right? So the whole part, like, oh, we hope third party operators that we didn't work with in the past want to work with us now. Like, yeah, they will. That's pretty easy to answer. That being aside, though, when we talk this whole discussion of like sharing the pie a bit more, I think that should extend around the entire competitive Overwatch landscape.
Yep.
Because the biggest problem for me, and this comes from someone that's worked at all levels of the Overwatch spectrum in terms of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, is like, you don't really work in tier 3, that has done tier 3, is that, like, in my opinion, everything outside of Overwatch League would be in better hands and would be in a better place in terms of, accessibility if it were done entirely through third parties. And that's not to speak negatively of Contenders. I think the Contenders program has been good. What it's tried to do has been very positive. Overwatch Contenders events have peaked in 2019 with some of the best Overwatch events we've ever had.
Sure.
League otherwise has been, through the Contenders program, it's done a great job. Academy teams have been good. I think there is a world and a place for that to continue as more of an academy league or an academy system, rather than like everyone has to do this. And really, to me, it's like there's an entire world out there for third parties to play in. If like everything below Overwatch League was now completely open to third parties, because I think that's the thing that Blizzard would like to save for themselves as the tier 1.
Of course.
And even when we talk about third party events as well, if you think about what third party events have existed for Overwatch League level, tier 1 level, it's like Shanghai Masters run by NetEase, who distribute Overwatch and Blizzard products games in China, as well as own the Shanghai Dragons. And then I think there was the Steel Series tournament. Now they are truly third party because I don't think they have any other interest within the Overwatch League, right? They're not like NetEase. There was the LA Valiant event as well. And that's about it. So they're mostly events tied to existing, connections to the Overwatch League itself in the first place. I'd be interested to see if they would let third parties actually access that level of competition, because I think the dream would be like old school in League of Legends, when you'd have your entire League of Legends season, and at the end there'd be IEM as well. Now, look, there were problems with that as well, because I think a lot of teams did say there was, that's kind of too much, and there's a bit of burnout. You don't want to play a full season then play IEM at the end of the year. And Riot kind of wanted to make that, just take it all within their own system, because at the end of the day, every developer would love to just have full 100% control over their own product, because that's how you get the most revenue, and that's how you have the most creative control, right? You don't want to have to give that to third parties if you don't have to. Like, I fully understand why that's the decision. So I don't know. That would be interesting. I would like to see third party massively opened up for all tiers.
Big agree, 100%. And I think that, not to get too detracted from this, again, this, at least in my mind, call me, hopefully I'm getting the reference right, Charlie Day with the whole conspiracy tie board, all the points aligning, the stars and the tea leaves and whatnot. But this paints a very interesting picture when you look at the talk around the feeling around the franchises and what they where they're at, right? We've definitely mentioned on this show, that there's been a sour taste in a lot of teams' mouths. I think it's very obvious. um, without naming names. Um, and it was surprising to me that we didn't see a sale this season. I will be surprised if we don't see a few sales by next season. But I think there
Of a
are,
franchise? Is that what
yeah,
we're talking about?
yeah.
I mean,
I
it's
think
for lack
we've
of
basically
bias,
had
right?
them in. Yes, but I think that could
And funding.
shift. 100% both agreed. But I think that could shift with a few things hitting right, but I don't want to completely jump into that. But I think it has a lot to do with exactly what you guys have basically kind of laid the groundwork for. Opening up the third party scene, really kind of coming back to the people who we've rightly burned. Well, not rightly, but have burned. And how big Overwatch 2 is going to be. There is some positives there. Again, this report, for lack of a better word, it does shed a lot of positive light, more so than negative ones. And I think that it's very easy to get caught up in a lot of like negativity around like, oh, well, everybody wants to sell and oh, there's no buyers. It's like, well, yes, as of right now there isn't, but when we look at the projections, like our two beautiful co-hosts have laid out, there's some positives to at least hold on to. Will they pan out? We'll have to see, but at least there's something.
Yeah.
Closing thoughts on the details within the article, Yiska, before we move on to the next topic.
I think generally speaking, like from my position, that article, I mean, I came away from it feeling positive about it, mainly because the release date being sort of pulled up. There's still so many questions that need to be negotiated there. It is very scary to me that we're sitting here like in September, 2 more months left on player contracts, with a gigantic game looming that has and will continue to siphon talent at all kinds of levels into that game, and we gotta figure out a product that remains competitive and gives people a predictable future, right? Like these guys are giving us their best and most formative years, and we are responsible towards like whoever is basically putting everything in to have great or good answers for them involved in order to, with confidence, say I'm going to continue my pro player career or my casting career or my team staff career or my whatever it is at all levels in Overwatch. And at best we'd have the answer already on the table, right? And but we don't, and I understand that we can't, maybe due to the limitations of, I mean, Corona as well. We haven't even really tested the premise of this leak in terms of the localization, even though I've always been or someone that didn't believe in that. I think if you were to now take that budget and develop a metaversial like arena for each team, you're probably going to be way more ahead of the curve than any other developer, for instance. But yeah, I don't know. Like, bottom line is, I think overall what was in that is generally positive for the community, because a lot of the stuff that is hushed about is now part of the public discourse. So great job on that article as well.
Yeah, I think the overall takeaway has to be positive. I think there are potentially some concerns in there that we listed out, but overall takeaway should be positive. I mean, there's a lot of like we just spent the last, I don't know how long, 50 or nearly an hour on some stuff regarding maybe speculations and some stuff that may even not be fully relevant. I mean, we'll see. But at the end of the day, like, I mean, I'll just speak for myself here, but this needs to kind of be, this has to be the promised land, right? This has got to be this is got to be the final destination in a way. I would personally hate it if we arrived at Overwatch 2 and then they started working on Overwatch 3. Like, no, please let this be the live service game it's meant to be.
Yes.
And just stop and just do it. This is like okay. Destiny. I'm going to use this weird example. Destiny 2 is the Destiny game. There should never be a Destiny 3. Your Destiny 2 should just be the game forever.
Yeah.
In the same way Overwatch 2 should just be the game forever now.
Yeah.
But beyond that as well is like what we need at the end of the day is like everyone would just love a game that we can play ad nauseum until the end of time, hopefully, um, and cherish and love and work and for the rest of the time as well. Because if you're a pro player, you don't want to feel like you're in dead water here. Like everything you do doesn't matter, and that extends to everyone that works around the esport of this game. Because unfortunately, like the people that have the hardest time moving away and transitioning are the people that are most tied to Overwatch. And these are like, if you're a pro player here, like yeah, maybe you could go to Valorant, but it might not work out. Plenty of those transitions didn't work out, and some of them have, but those are few and far in between. Um, as a caster, it can be hard as well. I mean, yeah, definitely you can cast more than one title, but ideally the dream would just be to do your
Got a
one
home.
game full time. That's your home. That's where you live, and that's it. And then you just keep doing that. Like I want this to be like how traditional sports are. Maybe this is a pipe dream where like, yeah, if I work in the NFL, I can work there for life and that's it. Like
Yeah.
boom. That should be what those plays as well. They have a full career ahead of them,
But
however long that's meant to be, but you can just
but by the way, keep going. Sorry. If you
is yeah, I think that's like that's the promised land. That's like I think that's everyone's dream in any game, really.
Yeah.
And um yeah, it's just the entire situation over the past few years has just been like, the negativity around it, everything going south and going sour, dropping off a cliff. Yeah, it's just been it's pretty bad.
I don't wanna open another side topic, but I believe in that being a thing in Overwatch. Like, if you want, I think the first stepping stone of that, what you just described, and having a live service game and whatever, is when I see the monetization model for Overwatch 2, and hopefully they're looking at Valorant, because whatever they're doing, like, you can be as idealistic as you want with like the skin boxes and like them not being predatory and whatnot, and the kids and whatnot. At the end of the day, like, Valorant is not really exploiting anyone in that they just have dope ass skins that people just drop ridiculous amounts of money on. They're arguably the best skins in any game. And if once we have these types of microtransactions that don't take any competitive impact or don't have any competitive impact on the game, that people really want and can financially sustain the development of this game, like, to infinity, that's when I go, oh, all right, boys, like, easy. So this is, now I can lean back and believe that this game is going to be around in 10, 15 years.
And they need to be a little bit more heavy-handed and fast with how they approach, balance and stuff like that, because you can't have a repeat of goats. These have to be lessons that are learned.
Yeah,
and they
I
are.
think they've put in some levies.
I think Blizzard know that they kind of messed up with the monetization, because they probably do look at other games with envious eyes, like, shit, we could be making a lot more money off their skins or their microtransactions. And Overwatch is unfortunately I can't believe I'm saying this, but too generous.
Yeah, no, it really is, right?
It's like a weird thing to say, right? Because mostly, if you're a player, you would love it. You would love it if the game was generous to you.
Yeah.
But that's actually bad for the health of the game in terms of the development. So there's a balance there where like the player should feel like they're being rewarded, but the development needs to keep churning through revenue as well. So there's definitely a balance there. For what it's worth, I think the Valorant skins are a bit expensive. I haven't really bought any, but I know plenty of people who do.
Yeah,
so it's successful. It's not. I'm probably not the market they're targeting, but they're taking somebody's money. So yeah, I think this is a big reset button. I think Overwatch has needed a big reset button for a long time in various factors: gameplay, monetization. Wouldn't be. I think there's a strong possibility that this game is going to be free to play for the PvP, and the PvE content will be paid, and that's part of the monetization as well. Yeah, I think there's a high chance that this can be the game that will lead us to the promised land. That would be the hope. I think we need to end that topic there, though. Otherwise, we're going to spend the entire podcast on there. As the next thing we'll talk about now, and we probably don't have quite as long to talk about this, so this is going to have to be shorter than previously planned. Is the other big news that came through was that due to COVID-related consequences, LAN playoffs have been cancelled. So live events for the playoffs in Arlington, Texas, and LA for the finals have unfortunately been cancelled, and the rest of the season will shift to the online model again, where North American teams will travel to Hawaii and play against the APAC teams who are currently still in in Asia.
Mm.
And part of that is just difficulty in traveling. I'll let you guys get your thoughts in on that, but I think Chengdu were one of the teams that actually said something about the difficulties regarding traveling. Like it's just
Yep.
hard for them to enter the country, and
There's
there's
no flights.
and there's even beyond that, like there's a lot of risks involved as well. There was a rumor I heard that where like if you contract COVID in the United States, like you can't even go back to China until a certain period of time. There's a lot of complications there. And I think people underestimate how difficult it is to secure international travel. The big
Yeah.
example people use are like, oh, why don't you just do what Riot did? How come Riot can do it? Bro, they did that. They planned for that months in advance. I don't know. I'm not saying they obviously didn't. Obviously, the obviously plans were kind of foiled because the plan was to go to Texas and to go to Arlington. But once that's foiled, it's not like we can just go to Iceland tomorrow. You can't make that happen in 2 weeks. But
I mean,
it's
right?
just
Kind of
unlucky.
didn't they? Like
They
they were
also have
planning to go
way
to
more
China,
time.
and then, I mean, they also knew how it's going, or
Yes.
like how that works. But they also did it the first time initially, you know? Like,
I'm not going to pretend like I know all the logistics behind it, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to give some benefit of the doubt to the
No,
league
no,
office.
it
Like
is.
it's not that easy, but
Yeah, no, it really isn't. Like, let me, like, I looked into this. It is like you have one option, and it's not economically feasible. Like, you can probably buy private jets or whatever and fly. Like, you
right.
sum everyone up in China, you get like a flight for everyone there. I don't think even a private jet would be enough for that. It would be ridiculous, the cost, right? Like, that point just raise the price money. So that doesn't make sense. I think there might have been better options, because there is a problem of competitive integrity spawning from that decision.
Yeah.
So I also think that every choice, legitimately, like every choice that entails Paris Eternal to have to hire a completely new roster where they to come to Playins is instantly off the table.
Mhm.
If there are other choices, and a team doesn't have to rehire their entire roster just for the playoffs, then that is a better choice. No other like discussion need to be had. That is such a showstopper of a situation. Like, what is going to? Can you then sign another Overwatch League team? Are you even allowing Paris Eternal to play in the Playins in the first place? Or do you just pull Florida up? How does that feel if they can't compete when they're just because of their location?
Agreed.
All of that is so unsatisfying. There must be a better solution, and I think Brad, for instance, suggested one.
What's this?
What was the idea? I think it was something where I think they wanted to play West Coast, and then the ping is like 160 for everyone, which is like playable for everybody. Like Pelican played on 170 and that worked. 240 is the problem.
Yeah.
Once again,
sorry, it's playable for Paris. Is that what you're saying?
that would be playable for. I'm not sure what the solution was in the end. I would have to look that up, but there was a feasible way, where like you could basically have competition on 160, which is not great. Like, but the thing is, here's what you're weighing up. You're weighing up the by the way, you're not getting 90 ping to Hawaii to the Asian teams. You're just not. So the 110, 120, 130 against playing like 170 or whatever, and you're weighing on top of one team possibly not being able to compete whatsoever if they make playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Well, surely they just play on high ping. I mean, it's functionally that they can't play, but they would just have to play on ridiculous ping, wouldn't they? If we're talking about Paris playing against an Asian team, where because they're like on like the opposite sides of the world, it's like the highest possible ping difference.
Yep.
So I mean, but what else can you do? I don't think there literally is no other option. It's not like Paris Eternal can get closer to either Hawaii or Asia.
Let me quickly find this.
So, in my mind, there just isn't a solution for Paris. They are simply going to have to play on Omega ping. like 200 ping or something. It's completely bad.
Yep.
And their season will probably be over because of it, sadly. But I do not see another option. I don't know what else you can do.
No. And as much as there may be like marginal upgrades to the choice made, I also put a lot of weight on the fact that they already have done some legwork, finding a location in Hawaii, finding a partnership that works, having, you know, a protocol that already has been tested and tried, and it does, barring some minor blips regarding Atlanta maybe getting there and having their flight delayed and getting there late, it does work for the most part. So especially last minute, we don't know what we can do. It makes a lot of sense to me that they go with Hawaii.
Okay, so I found the comment.
Okay.
And it's a Reddit comment by Sephy, and he basically says, "For everyone saying that this is the right decision, consider the following. Most of the teams were fully able to make it to Texas, and for those that couldn't, playing with Minlat's 160." So he's talking about the ping feature where everyone is now playing at 160, right? The server accounts for that on West Coast, and Minlat 90 for Paris, Minlat 0 for LAN attendees, would have yielded better matches overall. As it stands now, if Paris qualifies, they can't play at all and will have to sign an emergency roster to compete in their slot. The decision to do Hawaii once again puts the APAC teams at an unfair advantage over the Western teams. They get to use their own PCs, desk chairs, sleep in their own beds, no travel fatigue, exist comfortably in their own home facilities. At the very least, the teams in Asia should be made to travel within their own countries and play on a fresh setup at an office or something to even the playing field for the sake of competitive integrity. Now, I will say, if there's a location they could travel to for the sake of making the ping better, then that should probably be done if you can do so safely. Just to have them relocated just for the sake of also putting them through travel seems a little silly to me. Yeah, and then of course, like
it also won't happen because of cost, because that costs somebody money.
Yes,
I'm just not gonna like, and if it costs the teams money, it will instantly be shot down. If it costs the teams money, the response is the Asian teams will just say, "Nah, sorry, Brad, not gonna happen.
Yep,
not gonna pay that." They'll say, "Oh, you can foot the bill, Brad, if you want us to do that." That will be the response.
What I will say is also a pretty disappointing about this, because my understanding is that none of the NA teams were consulted about this. At least, maybe it happened at ownership level. I don't think it happened. It trickled down to the players or even head coaches or general managers. While what we heard from the Asian region was that they even consulted with the parents of the players whether or not they would be fine having their children travel over to North America. Now, that seems very unequal in the ability to influence the decision with arguments, and I don't like that. I also think that while there is no perfect competitive integrity to be found or a solution, I do think like APAC had pretty big advantages this season, generally speaking.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that there's something to be said. I know you guys, like Americans, just love for the playoffs to be the be all end all. In my opinion, the winner of the season won't be determined by the grand finals winner, but so it doesn't matter to me if the grand finals are therefore a little bit less fair for the APAC teams, because in aggregate, like if you're achieving fairness there, then I can weigh those up against each other. And if Dallas wins the grand finals because of that advantage, then they were like slightly better than Shanghai that season. It's very easy, right? So I understand that this is not your value structure, and you think like lucking out once in your life is all it takes to be deserving of big victories. But yeah, I don't know. I don't.
That's a very large. Yes, I agree. Culturally, lots of things around that to support it. Playoffs and traditional sports in the States definitely very much to what Yiska is saying. But I think esports ad nauseum as a whole has an issue regarding playoffs and how we treat those and what kind of sanctity that should bring. But that's a very, very large topic.
I just don't know that there is a solution. I mean, I
No,
think
but
the,
there's
okay,
not.
let's consider that the most ideal thing to do if there was zero COVID is that all the teams travel, all 8 teams travel somewhere, so everyone has to travel. They
Mhm.
all play on LAN. It's all great. It's a fantastic thing. But failing that, we could have done something like last year where all the teams go to Korea and they play on minimum latency. They're not on LAN, but they're on like very even ping. But unfortunately, I don't know if there's enough time to get that done because these again, people
Yes.
that don't travel or that don't have a good concept of how traveling works they underestimate how fucking crazy and difficult it is to work through visas, especially during a global
But
pandemic.
visas were apparently not the issue that the general
Okay,
manager said.
visas plus traveling
It
at
was the
all
flights.
combined as an
Flights,
umbrella.
yeah.
It's the net umbrella of all travel, which includes
Yeah.
logistics, visas, everything. This is not just visas. I just started with visas, but it includes
Yeah, of
everything.
course.
Now,
So it's not like we could just go. It's not like we could just go to Korea either. I assume.
Mm.
I assume we can't just go to Korea. Otherwise, that should then be the next option. I assume the option is that basically what it is that teams in North America probably can't leave North America, and teams outside of North America can't enter North America. Therefore, we're gonna have to go back online.
I mean,
And really, if we that's it. That's all we can do. If you don't do that, you
Yeah.
just don't have the playoffs. You just don't have a final.
okay.
Um,
Like, I agree with you from the standpoint of I was just hired into the league office and now I have to make a decision, and that's a problem. What we have to realize is that past decisions directly impact our ability to come to satisfying conclusions. I.e., what if we had better relationships to third-party tournaments? And could, for
Agreed.
instance, us and ESL, what about that Cologne Lanxess arena that's currently pretty like empty because nobody is really like confident hosting those there? Like
is venue the problem?
okay,
Isn't travel the
whatever.
problem?
I think it's a problem.
But
Yeah,
I mean,
not a big one.
travel to Iceland is apparently possible on a dime to turn around in terms of travel, right? Like, Berlin is possible. That would have been something. Like they determined that was going to be the most likely safe location for that to take place. So, like, let's not pretend that we didn't theoretically, in the makeup of this league, at some point, through not like rationalizing everything away that doesn't immediately make us money, the most money and the most ownership of the entire product of Overwatch hasn't impacted our ability to now sort of react to these situations. Because, I mean, maybe it would be easier to get something in Europe done if you still had your European office.
I have a solution then.
To the same extent.
I have a solution then. I think what could have and should have happened is obviously A, consult the teams, B, delay the dates. Because if you're working within the constraints of here are the dates set for plans and playoffs, and we can't go anywhere within those constraints, well then you if it's possible to break those constraints, break them. Delay it by I don't know how long it may. Let's just say 2 weeks. That may not be long enough. I don't know. But you're saying there could be a fast turnaround if you wanted to go to somewhere like Iceland. I don't know what that would be, but
here's the thing. That's also really hard to do because not only are Overwatch League player contracts are running out, there's also a lot of contractors in the Overwatch League on the production side that will have their contract run out. And you can't know for sure that they are not going to be bound to anything else after that, right? So there you have the logistical issues on that.
That's the thing. There's a lot of issues. So delaying would be my solution, but then obviously you brought up different sorts of contracts. And look, for guys like me, not that I'm really part of playoffs, but like for people, hypothetically, it's like if they said, "Oh, we're going to delay the dates," like, all right, sweet, we'll just do those delayed dates then. But if I had other work lined up, that would kind of fuck things over for me. So I can definitely see it being a problem. That being said, though, the people that are doing playoffs, they're like exclusive to the Overwatch League anyway, so it's not like they don't actually have things lined up. My point is like there may be other contractors in production and all that kind of stuff, and it gets messy. I think the easiest solution is to do this in Hawaii, which is clearly where we are. That's clearly what the end result is that the most simple, straightforward solution is to go to Hawaii because they've done Hawaii 4 times. They know it works. They know how to do it. They know the processes. There's no new things introduced. It's not a strange thing. Very little concern of like hiccups and other mishaps. Just they can just push a button and make it happen, and boom, there it is. Hawaii will happen. So I can see it from that regard. I fully understand why this decision to go back to Hawaii happened.
Yeah.
One thing, my one demand. I waive the logistics. I waive the decision making. There is no good choice. There is no correct solution. The truth machine has been bunked, okay? My one hope that this league gets right with another online final that I think they accidentally stumbled upon. You have to ramp up. And this is going to confuse some people. You have to ramp up observation. I want cameras. I want live feeds. I want photography. I want to feel as close as I am as pessimistic as you may add, but you need something there. You need some sort of fly on the wall. I wrote about this last year after 2020's final.
Just do more content.
That's been my gripe with the league for a long time, and I think they're trying their best. I'm
stuff,
a little at my wit's end with some of the things, but I know that they're trying, and I commend them for trying. But there has to be vision in those dugouts, in those wherever you are. We have to see the players and the reactions. There's something
we get those. I mean, what are you asking for? Are you asking for like a live cam feed that you can access to watch?
It can't be just webcams.
So you're looking for like a camera upgrade then? Is that what it is? Or?
Yeah, I mean, webcams are the bare minimum. I think I'd love to have some sort of live feed into the area that these players are playing in. I think it's very possible. I don't know that it will happen.
I don't know that this is something that people really want. I mean, you might want this, but I think this is quite a rare thing for people.
The one thing I will say is the winning moment the only winning moment we got to see from the shock was recorded, I believe, on a phone of a guy that like was apparently experiencing an earthquake while holding the phone. Like
that very much live leak footage.
That should be the case, right?
Wasn't there like a above camera that kind of filmed the
I
shot?
think that was
That's what I remember.
I feel like that was Shanghai that had that, right? No? They had like the practice room, and that's why we had the Moongate thing where he's like running up and down during the game, which is theoretically not allowed.
Shanghai had some background footage, which was great, and they obviously put that all over social media, especially during playoffs. Commend them for that, but I'd love to see that ramped up a little bit more. Shock also, if memory served, had an overhead cam, because I do remember a specific shot that really resonated with me.
Yeah, I think that was something. Yeah, you're right.
It was a little weak, but you need, again, I don't think it's that crazy to associate the live audience to player reaction and being there with the players. As much as that's kind of parasocial, there is something there. There's a reason why people watch react channels. There's a reason why people want to see the players react to big plays. There's a reason why OGN is so...
we have a lack of that. I don't think we have a lack of that. Do we have a lack of that?
Yes, 100%.
Do we?
Yes.
We've got player cams, we've got reaction. Maybe we could do a bit more content. I mean, I don't know. I've personally not felt a lack of like, oh man, there's such a lack of connection to players. I've personally not felt that. Maybe you have, but to me, it's been pretty good, honestly.
I think I'm a little bit arguing for an ideal. I don't mind it as much. I'd love to see more of it. I'd love to see more content, of course. But I do think that people are, and maybe I'm wrong. I could be very wrong, but I think the vast majority of people would like an increase in that area of seeing players, seeing their faces, especially when we go to Hawaii. We don't get a lot of it. We get the winning moment, and that's great for the stages. But I am concerned with this not feeling like another final. I've been very critical of the league across its history that playoffs have been treated like a stepchild.
It's an online final. I think it's always going to have that feeling of like it's just
Of
a little bit
course, but I
underwhelming.
think you have to try to mitigate that feeling as best as you can. And I gave them, the benefit of the doubt in 2020. But if we get another 2020, it's gonna be upsetting, disappointing. Let's say.
I think getting a 2020 would already be like pretty cool. That's optimistically you'd hope for to get a 2020 because I don't think you might not even get that. There's with all the like the ping discussions and all this other kind of stuff going on. Like it could be worse in 2020. Sadly, it's just how things ended. Dude. If only we could actually just have a LAN, but
of course, yeah.
The most frustrating part is, and I feel like I've been a negative Nancy for most of this. I feel for everyone like that is like, especially like even league ops and whatever, they don't have the level of agency in those decisions to realistically make a difference, right? Like
100%.
The decisions that led to this situation. It's like we are in a situation where it's a global pandemic. It's if you want, a black swan event. But there are other companies that have better systems and better have built up redundancies that they can now work with, and in order to fix that situation. Like, yes, you can run a great league like in the best of cases and under the best of circumstances, but you gotta have more than is necessary in order to be able to react to situations that come up that you can't possibly predict, like a global pandemic. And that is not at the level of even a John Spector, right? Like that's
of course.
That's big money shit, right? Like where people above that decide that. And unfortunately, like I mean, you can only do as much. And I think in that, like Hawaii was already like a stroke of genius in that. I think also a little bit, and I'm not sure how much pressure was applied by the teams that actually went to Hawaii. Personally, I reached out to teams after May Melee and asked like what was the setup like, and I didn't necessarily hear that there were any issues. So like maybe if you actually thought like that the tables and everything were actually problems, if you don't get a response from the league, typing in the official Overwatch channels, maybe you go to a journalist and apply public pressure towards that, because we could have had these issues fixed by now. To sort of like raise this as a point now when you have had 4 tournaments where those issues apparently persisted, and to now moan about this, like, yes, everyone understands that travel is worse for you, like everyone realizes that, but that's once again one of those issues. Like, I mean, you by not making it as big of a problem that it apparently is to you, unless you're just adding it as an argument in order to get more pity points. Like, there's only so much empathy I can have towards that situation,
sure.
right? So,
100%.
Once again, like it's not fair for anyone at any level that we're dealing with this, but we do have precedent that other games and other scenes are handling this situation way more graciously, and are reaping the benefits because of that. And we could be there, and it wasn't due to a lack of advice at the time these decisions were made that are now causing us issues.
Yeah, that's the part that sucks. The part that sucks is the fact that, you unfortunately, if you do look over the fence and you see your neighbor Riot doing X and Y things, and then when I say you, I mean like just people who are following Overwatch League and then looking over and seeing what League of Legends is doing, they're like, hang on a second, what's this? Like, how come? Well, not even League of Legends, but Valorant. How come any of those guys get to do the LANs and we don't get to do the LANs? I don't know. A part of me feels like there was a plan in motion to go to Arlington and to go to LA for some time, and it seemed like a pretty solid plan, but it fell through. You're not wrong talking about contingencies here, Yiska. I think, sadly, maybe, unfortunately, the contingency is just play Hawaii. That's the contingency, really. That's your plan. That probably was just plan B. Speculatively, I don't actually know, but
by the
what
way,
I can say is that the league,
just one guy, one
Go.
guy that you gotta love for. I guess it's more than one guy, but like don't you think Baby Bay is just sitting in his lifeboat, just like grinning for making the decision of his life, like basically like jumping ship at the perfect time in order to like now look down, just like, oh my god, yeah, okay, like I jumped off at the right time. Corey as well, I guess. Like it must feel pretty nice to have made that decision.
Sinatra until he fucked himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure. I mean, yeah, there's been that happens in a lot of esports. I mean, there were also guys that benefited coming over to Overwatch when they weren't doing much in whatever game they used to play in, and that's happened. And it's been happening of all history in esports from game to game and plenty of games. But the point I was trying to end on is that the league clearly were making moves to do LAN play. Like there was going to be a big LAN finals. Like those things were happening. It's like people saying like, oh, why aren't we doing what Riot are doing? How come we don't have LAN? It's like, bro, we were meant to have a LAN, and then COVID fucked us. But it's like, yeah, I guess the more pressing discussion is like, well, what could we have done in contingency plans? I think the discussion is not that like why is Overwatch not having a LAN. It's like, well, we tried. It was there. It was gonna be there. It was announced.
Yeah.
But then it fell through. The greater discussion is surrounding like what the plan Bs could have been. But
the one thing I'll add as a quick point for the Riot comparisons, and you can hold me to this, I don't think Berlin is going off without a hitch. Like, I don't think this is going to be a completely spotless event. Yeah. Well, hopefully. That'd be cool.
Tell us on the ground level, Yiska, how it's going to be.
I'm not 100% if that will be there. I mean, we don't even know the Overwatch League schedule now, right? That's another thing I didn't realize. But like, of course, because of Hawaii, at least the times of the matches will have to move, and maybe the days even. I'm not sure.
Sure. But from start to end, I'm keeping a very close eye on how Berlin runs, who gets there, who is delayed getting out. If that makes sense. Sure. I'm very skeptical on this is going to be a spotless event, just like how most events currently have to work.
Unless anyone has any rapid closing thoughts on the discussion around LAN events, I think we've exhausted that topic quite succinctly there. Basically, TLDR, it sucks. We wish they could be better. We wish they could be LAN.
It do suck.
And fuck you, COVID. That's really what it is. Playins. We've arrived at the actual Playins preview. If you stuck around for the first hour and a half,
bless you if you have.
Like,
bless
bro,
you.
they haven't talked about
Troopers
playoffs at all. Thank you. If you've looked through the descriptions, you're like, man, how long is it going to take them to get to the preview of the Playins? And boom, you click the button. You've just joined us now. Welcome to TCP episode 190. You've just joined us.
Let's not pretend they aren't just all drama frogs and actually liked the first part and now they're like, actually esports is alliance all about the drama. That's all I'm saying.
Bro, I mean, you and I just saying.
People are probably more likely to want to hear about the rumor stuff than the actual previews.
No, you're way less cynical about this than I am.
I don't know. Anyway, guys, so Playins are obviously happening very soon. This upcoming weekend, starting from
this weekend, Saturday.
The first game is Saturday, or does it start on Saturday? It does. It starts on Saturday the 4th. So, we are going to start things out with the East Division: Philadelphia versus Hangzhou Spark. Winner of that plays Seoul. Then we're going west: Paris versus Washington, Boston versus Defiance. So obviously, Washington picked Paris. We'll discuss a little bit about that decision soon. The winner of Washington versus Paris plays San Francisco Shock, and the winner of Boston Toronto plays Houston Outlaws. And then the winner of those matches make it to the playoffs, and the winner of Seoul versus either Philly, Hangzhou go to playoffs. So there's 3 spots remaining: 2 from NA, 1 from APAC, and it's very limited. We have how many teams? 3, 6, 9 total teams in play-ins, of which only 3 can make it to the playoffs to themselves. Just any opening thoughts on what this looks like in your mind before we dig deep into any particular match?
I know that we had mentioned before the show that it sucks that some people are going to have to play back-to-back, but it's again
that's
a
pretty
balance
normal.
of
that's been happening all year.
A minor suck point, but It is what it is. Not worth really griping over, at least in my opinion. Um, I guess my only like real gripe. I love reseeding the brackets. I think that's a great commendable point. Obviously, some leagues out there, won't name names, still can't seem to wrap their head around some formatting things. But we seem to be doing it pretty well, I will say.
Yep.
I like our formats. They're pretty
Best
alright.
decision they made. Best
Yes,
decision they made for sure.
genuinely. But outside of
Highest
that, yeah,
competitive
it's
integrity
Hmm?
possible. Highest competitive integrity possible in the reseeding.
Yep.
agreed, 100%.
There's
My
no
only gripe,
RNG in the brackets.
my only gripe is I wish certain teams, and this is again like sugar plum as it gets. Spark probably really shouldn't be here, and they probably won't last for very long. But yeah,
Oh, you're getting to Preds already. Hang on. Hold tight, Joe.
sure,
Hold tight.
fair.
I have a
I know I'm
timestamp.
jumping. I'm froggy.
I have to add one thing that I forgot. I made a mistake. So forget what I said earlier about Paris and Washington play San Francisco Shock. No, Shock pick whoever they want. So
They get
out of
exited.
Paris, Washington, Boston, Toronto, the winners of that, Shock then pick that, and then Houston get whoever's left. So my mistake earlier, it's they don't automatically go into the next side of the break. I got baited.
Which will be very
I got
important.
baited by Liquipedia because it looks like they just move in, but they don't. They don't. Obviously, Seoul do play the winner of Philadelphia Hangzhou because there's no other option. They just simply play that. So I guess there's nothing really surprising about play-ins because I mean we've kind of talked about teams and their performances over the year. We've said our goodbyes to teams like New York Excelsior, etc. I wouldn't necessarily disagree that I think New York have looked better than Hangzhou Spark moving in. Maybe it would be good actually to have a very brief meta discussion as well, just as we move forward. Because my argument, Joe, is I think an open meta, and for people that don't understand, is obviously hero pools are gone after Countdown Cup. We're back to a completely open meta. Everything's open and able to be played. Hangzhou Spark significantly improve with open
100%.
metas. Shy gets to go back on Ash. Shy gets to play his good heroes. He gets to go on Echo again. It's obviously Hangzhou Spark's not all about Shy, but I'm lying. It actually is all about Shy. Really, he's carried the fuck out of them, hasn't he? So putting Shy back on his good heroes, I think, is very important for Hangzhou Spark.
100%. There are definitely a few teams that will benefit from this. I think their opponents as well, the Philadelphia Fusion, definitely benefit from this. I definitely view them, without getting too deep into specific predictions, I do view them as a very Western APAC team. But yeah, I tend to agree that with the meta being open, it does favor some teams, or at least opens them up. So they aren't completely pinched out of certain strategies. They at least have something to run. And we will get, I think, starting in the play-ins, a lot of stylistic matchups that if things work as, if my projections are right, which let's face it, they rarely are. We'll have some bangers. I'd say for sure in play-ins. Weirdly enough,
Wow, because play-ins will be the first time we actually get to see what is actually happening in the open meta, like who's going to be favoring what. I suspect my wish list. I would love if teams go back to main melee a little bit. Summer Showdown could be cool as well, but I think main melee. I think most people agree that main melee was probably still the best in terms of meta that this game has ever been in. From my position, from my POV at least, from what I've seen, from what I think, because you had almost every single comp was viable, or most heroes were viable. No hero had higher than 50% play rate, which is like really incredible for Overwatch League. So I would love to see a very like diverse meta, and actually a meta that serves different team strengths. Because now you get to have Philly go back to the brawl that they've been so good at. You get to have Hangzhou playing Shy's good heroes. You get to have Dallas go back to Lucio, Moira, their style. That's for playoffs a little bit later on. And teams can finally be free to do what they want. And beyond that as well, I think maybe the lesson we learn is that did we really need hero pools? I mean, it's the novelty is kind of fun, like, oh, it's different, but at the same time, it's just like,
I love what
yeah,
you're cooking.
but the open metas have been the best, haven't they? But also, you could argue the open metas have been the best because hero pools being in the middle kind of like chopped
Yeah.
it up a bit. Otherwise, having one big open hero meta for the entire year might have been stale. Who knows? I don't know.
Possibly. Definitely. I think when we get to international events, that's where I've always drawn my big argument, my big and but, is that the meta bubbles are vastly different on who you can practice and who you can play against and what is run. That division is very important. But yeah, I think the big story and the big lesson I think teams have readily talked about and learned is that you can I think it is agreed upon as almost a truth at this point in Overwatch that you can run what you believe, at least iteratively, to the meta, right? Like you can iterate on the meta and run what you feel comfortable doing, what you're best at, and still find success and still be successful. And hopefully teams will rely on that with this open hero pool.
So Yiska, you spoke to Christopher. Go ahead and tell us exactly what Philadelphia Fusion are going to run. I'm kidding. What's going on in your head?
Right. I think like it's going to be back to basically what was the third? Is it Summer Showdown?
Summer Showdown.
Yeah, the one without hero pools, right?
Yeah.
Was I think especially like APEC, of course, still believes in the ball. I'm not sure if too many people have been swayed that Winston is playable, even though I expect some teams to run it, especially North American teams, in terms of like playing against their domestic counterparts, just because, I mean, that's winnable, right?
Yes.
I think APAC does believe that, like, I think the quote from Christopher was, Shanghai and Chengdu are the best teams in the world at the moment. And then I asked, like, is the implication here that because they're the best wrecking ball teams and it's the strongest tank hero at the moment, or tank lineup? He's like, yeah, stupid hero, as well as Tracer Sombra.
Stupid hero.
Very stupid. Like, yeah.
Context, by the way, Yiska interviewed Christopher recently,
Right.
so this is
yeah.
public info. You go ahead and check out the interview, by the way. Continue.
Yep. And yeah, that resulted in results probably in, like, you know, Tracer Echo, or like Tracer Sombra type of things, compositions with a lot of ball, especially in APAC. I think a bunch of NNA teams will play the same way, you know, because there's low confidence that, for instance, Winston comps will be able to outplay the balls simply because of what Dallas was tortured by in the midseason.
Sure. Yeah.
And I mean, we also all remember the Hawk tweet saying like, "Lol, winning dive matters against APAC if you're not Dallas," which is interesting.
Ironically, Dallas couldn't either, so you know.
Yeah.
Not even Dallas. So
yeah. So yeah, I think personally that was my favorite meta of the season as well. I also think, like, yes, I agree that it was interesting in May Melee that we had so much diversity. I'm not sure if it's necessarily down to the meta state and more like people still figuring out what is good. At the same time, like I've always said, like meta is almost like a social construct.
what, May?
Yeah, you said like you liked May Melee, right?
They had a whole part of the. Well, I would argue that they had a long time to figure out. They had the entire
Of the preseason, yeah.
including a full preseason, two full preseason tournaments.
Right.
The reason why May Melee was so good is because there wasn't this like rush, like, oh, we have 1 week to figure out the meta between May Melee and June Joust. That's what happened in June Joust. The reason why May Melee is good is because teams were already practiced and they had already been
possible, yeah,
you know, well adjusted to what the meta was gonna be. That's why it looked good. They had the whole preseason.
That's the thing. Like, I'm not sure if you could be right, and I think I'm more inclined to say that you are. But there's also the possibility that not proving your own meta interpretation against in actual competitive matches where you then could lose confidence in, while everyone isn't playing the same. Like Dallas isn't playing the same Overwatch they're in scrims that they're playing on live service.
Sure. Yes.
Are they not?
Yes.
Are you sure about that?
They're playing vastly inferior Overwatch, is what I'm hearing from everyone. Like they are tanking scrims basically comparatively, and that's
Well,
not
okay,
maybe not by
results.
intention, but they're much worse than
You can
scrims,
read that, and you can read that into a there's results, and then then there's attention.
right?
Intention being like they are running what they
Sure.
want to run in matches,
Mm.
but they are mis-executing or playing it poorly in scrims, and then
Yep.
doing that well in matches. Versus they're doing completely different shit in scrims to what they're doing in matches. I disagree with
Yep.
that part. Or at least I don't know. I'm speculating as well.
Yeah.
But my interpretation of that would be that they are playing poorly in scrims while doing what they are supposed to be doing, and then doing that exact same thing much better in matches for
Yeah.
some reason.
Yeah, and I think it has a lot to do with what type of team they are as like a group of people. Just some super
Mhm.
high energy during games and play very aggressively and well of that aggression. But yeah, like I think overall, I'm not sure how much diversity we will see. It feels like we're unfortunately reverting back for a lot of teams to like the idea. Okay,
Really?
best team has best meta read. Thus, we should all play more ball. But I mean, other
Sure.
teams like, for instance, Atlanta aren't fully going towards that route, and I think to a large degree, like I'm not sure how that tournament goes if Pelican is with them, for instance.
Oh, of course, yeah. Agreed.
So there might be other solutions. It's also unfortunately due to a lack of quality practice. There's only so much you can try. Like Christopher said, it's very challenging, currently to find scrim partners because, like, contenders teams are still on a hero pool that they had to scrim for.
Just ended.
Just ended,
As
yeah.
of like yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that's not going to help you much in the weeks leading up to this.
Won't help Playins.
I don't know what Philly's relationship with T1 is, their academy team.
Right.
And I assume you didn't ask Christopher about it, but I always assume that if you have an academy team, they are one of your primary scrim partners, and you can
Hope so.
kind of like ask of them to help you in certain ways.
Sure.
And well, at least that's how I think you should play, because essentially that's like another roster. If you have an academy team, they're your second roster, and if you have two rosters, you can kind of have more targeted practice versus like a random team where like you don't own them. You literally own your academy. They are an entity that belongs to you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I would assume that Philly and I would assume that Fusion and T1 can have more targeted practice, and if they
Sure.
want, they can get T1 to do certain stuff with them, and maybe vice versa. I don't know. That would be how I would run a team, but that's an interesting food for thought. I just want to see teams play their style and really have that distinct style. I really don't like mirrors, by the way. Not the play. I love Chris. But I'm not a fan of like mirror matchups with identical heroes. I think it's a bit boring. I always like it when teams show their own style, and this is their thing, and then they make that work, and you have a clash of styles. The NAO APAC thing's always been great. That's what I hope would happen. I think that's what will probably happen as well. I suspect that Dallas will go back to things that they know work for them. NA teams, Philly will go back to things that work for them as well. Yeah, I don't have a lot more to add on meta here, unless anyone else does before we move on.
To amplify your point, I think with this open hero pool, yes, there is a push with the patch. It does make Wrecking Ball that much more incentivized. Let's
Soldier
say.
meta, boys. Soldier meta incoming.
Yeah, Soldier. I think there's a lot of parallels, and I know that we said this last season or last meta review that we kind of botched a little bit. But I think there is a lot of parallels coming in from Countdown Cup, a lot of similar heroes, especially in NA, that we'll see use. And I think the variety in NA with the teams that we've gotten specifically in play-ins should showcase that quite a lot. I think there will be teams that I disagree with that will continue to abide by these social constructs, as Yiska likes to call them. That will try to force the wrecking ball, that will try to force the dive, even though they're not good at dive. And they will probably be punished. And I think there's lots of teams that will opt in the complete opposite direction. They'll try to do the double shield. They'll try to do a rush on control. They'll probably bring back Echo Ash, maybe even Tracer Ash in some degree on specific maps. I'm looking kind of at Escort. But yeah, I think there's a very open pool for teams to flex their style. it really comes down to, will they?
So I don't have anything to add there. Great points, Joe. Let's go on to the actual play-ins. I'm loving it.
Can-
Okay, play-ins.
Can I just
Go-
bring up
we
one
go.
minor point, which I gotta get one cheap shot.
Get it
out.
dig. Come on.
Right.
Get it out there.
Bring it in.
So I agree that with you guys that I think not only should Dallas revert to like trying to make the Winston work, because there's precedent. It's also like there was an interesting comment by let me just add them so I'm not pussyfooting around it, but
You're not subtweeting them, yeah. Okay.
like
Okay.
like I think there was, and I didn't actually see that particular part, but the defense by, I believe it was Avast towards like Fearless MVP was that he remained a top 5 ball in North America. To that I say, one man's top 5 NNA wrecking ball is another man's average in the Overwatch League.
You're wrong. You're not wrong there, son.
Did you say not wrong, Joe? I couldn't understand. Did you say wrong or not wrong?
Yeah, no, not wrong at all. I
Not
think,
wrong, right.
yeah, this has been pretty rough for NA with the wrecking balls. I don't think we have. There's a few heroes, weirdly enough, and I'm not going to get on a tangent, but
Don we trust in, and Don we trust.
pretty
for
much.
the wrecking ball.
Yeah.
Okay, and moving on from that, so the news in play-ins, the only news that exists in play-ins was that Washington picked Paris. Speaking of Don, and I think the reaction was a little bit mixed from fans, where some people were quite surprised, others thought it was quite amusing, and the reason why is because apparently, based on the Washington socials, they literally picked Paris via like I don't even know what it is, like some sort of like egg game that their players were playing. I think it was like Tuba was one of them.
Yeah.
Might have been
Yeah.
Tuba and Jerry or something like that. I'll try and find the tweet.
I think
so.
it's called Smash the Sideshow. I think that's what it's.
Oh, very good.
Smash the sideshow. Let me find the tweet really quickly because it is kind of funny. I opted to pick their opponent not through some sort of actual like analysis of like, oh, who are we going to match up better. At least that's what I'm seeing. Supposedly they just picked it by like smashing the egg. Like they had to bait each other to smashing the egg, and then based on that, it was either going to be Boston or Paris, and it ends up being Paris. And some of the comments were like, why would you pick Paris? This seems like a harder team than Boston. And the response is like, well, literally the game decided that's what we're going to do. So if we are to give them the benefit of the doubt and say like, okay, they literally did pick because of whatever silly game they played, is this the right call? Like, is this good for them? Does it not matter if you're Washington and you believe you're the better team? Maybe they just don't care. It's like, well, whoever we play, we should just beat, right? Like that should be maybe something that they have internally. But it does
I
seem
like
strange.
that. I hope they're coming in with that kind of gumption, because I don't think there is a right choice, personally.
Okay. Because a lot of the community think the right choice is Boston. That's what they believe.
Okay. Yeah, I'm very down on Justice. I've heard a lot of the copium. Oh, they're just, you don't know when they're gonna pop off. You don't know when they're gonna be good. They're real inconsistent. This is probably the worst team to figure out metas, by and large, and they're coming off of easily one of their worst stages that we've seen them in. It will be a miracle to see them in playoffs. A Cinderella, and yes, this is the Justice we're speaking of. This is the 2020 Cinderella team. This needs to be a Herculean effort to get them. They need to start signing players today.
No. All they need is Decay to go back to Zarya. That's it. You don't even hate that idea.
No, to be honest, no, I don't. I don't hate it. Yeah, there needs to be a massive. It would be an upset to see them in playoffs, or maybe even out of the first round of play-ins. To be completely fair, I don't know that there is a good pick for them.
Do you think they beat Paris? Who wins this game? Let's get analytical. Who wins this game? Knowing that we don't actually know what the meta is going to be, like we don't solidly know what the meta is going to be. We don't know what the teams are going to play. Could you speculate on who you think might win this game? take a guess, educated guess, hopefully.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Well, I
fine.
mean, you're already talking. I just
Yeah.
want to get because you.
Sure, agreed. I know that he's thinking and wants to formulate
What
things.
what I'm basically doing here, Joe, is you're saying Washington won't make the playoffs at all.
No.
Well, it would be a Herculean effort. So I'm
Yes.
trying to lay out their pathway and see what needs to happen. So first of all,
Agreed.
the first thing in their path is the Paris Eternal. Do they beat the Paris Eternal?
Do you want? I mean, I have some points. I don't know if Yiska.
Ah, come on. Should I just tell you that? Okay.
Just
So-
go. Somebody please say something.
I think the more likely team to win that is the Washington Justice. I think there are a lot of arguments that speak towards them in non-hero pools. I think 7 out of their 9 victories this season have been in non-hero pools. Also correlating with that, though, is that they also dodged the first week of play. I think the fact that they have to play play-ins is very scary for them. Like, I think if they make it out of play-ins, they will have will look way better in playoffs.
Of course.
But I mean, it's not a confident one. It's like a 60-40.
Sure.
And that's also one of those where, I mean, it's really hard to predict how they would fare after that. But yeah, in terms of the initial game, I also think there's a possibility where there's 2 ways where how that draw could have gone. Either they recorded the footage twice and they already picked like whoever they liked the most before, and then they just played or they genuinely don't think there's a considerable difference between them to beat them, which I don't even necessarily disagree with. I don't think there's one clear team that's a worse matchup for Washington Justice. I think once again that's a matchup that will come down to, unfortunately, how well Decay is shown up that in that matter. I think like over the season, I think he has the highest 10 kills per 10. He once again like hard carried
Awesome.
like
In
throughout
total.
the season. Possibly like something that's not talked about enough. So they also have a lot of time to prepare, comparatively speaking, or had a lot of time to prepare.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this first match is the scary one, and if they then make it out, I have more confidence. Like that was then my filter to see if they're actually a good team, because I don't think either Boston or Paris are going to drop the ball. They're probably going to be pretty strong if Washington beats them. Then I'm also looking towards, like, I'm not if I'm shocked, I'm not picking Washington then. Like if Washington gets out, I'm not picking Washington, and then it probably goes to Houston, and that's a very open match for me.
Yep. I like that. Open. We'll have to put a pin in that one. But this match for me kind of comes down to Washington's inability to adapt to metas that are put in front of them. Looking at the teams that are appearing in the play-ins, at least from the NA side of things. So that's the Paris Eternal, the Washington Justice, Boston, Toronto. Again, all the teams appearing in the NA playoffs. Justice have the worst week 1 performance by far against teams that probably are middle of the pack when you look at them comparatively in terms of strength of schedule. In the face of a lot of 5-3 records, 6-2, 7-1 for Toronto, weirdly enough, but we'll get to them. Justice are 3-5 in week 1 performances this season, and I do correlate that. I do see a lot of ties to them having terrible meta reads. I think they're going to come into this. They're still going to be playing Wrecking Ball, and I don't see them performing well at all.
AVRL?
What? I'm just saying, like, you say they have poor meta reads, but I think this is not like a brand new meta. This is not like, it is in some ways, but really it's not.
It shouldn't be.
We're back to an open meta that, like, no team should be confused about what to play here, because we've done this twice this year, and it's like you literally the entire thing's open. The only times where I think teams really get stuck with meta reads is when a hero pool comes out, and you're like, well, Lucio and whatever else is banned. Like, what the fuck do we play now? Because we really need the Lucio or whatever. I'm just using him as the
Sure.
example. And
Yeah,
that
yeah.
and I think June Zhao specifically really stunted Washington because they like obviously had a bad read and they weren't sure what they were going to do.
Yep.
But I, like Yiska said, I think Washington have done well in the open metas. And I don't think they should be falling prey to being lost in the meta when it's an open meta. Like, there's no way. And if they are, like, goddamn, this team is zero hope. Like, every team should know what they're doing. I don't think there is a single team that should be lost in the open meta that's upcoming this weekend.
Oh, I think
Um,
they know what they're doing. I think they're very confident with, well, maybe not confidence the word, but I think the big two decision makers that kind of drew me to this direction was the June Joust and was what they did in Countdown Cup. You had them in the June Joust start off with the Wrecking Ball on Paris. They looked like hot garbage, like a tire fire in the middle of the street, and they adapted and moved to Winston. They did not do that for Countdown Cup, and that has me worried. This team looks very rigid at the moment.
it depends on whether you think they have the ability to actually adapt and learn from those mistakes. What I'll say is I really enjoyed Pre's his little his speech that he did was really good.
Yeah.
Actually, like no cap, I think that was actually quite inspiring. Um, with the whole like crushing the ping pong thing, I was like, you get that ping pong ball fear, you crush that fear. Yeah. So I don't know. I this is the team that I want to back and say, oh yeah, and just because the team on paper will always be so good, that this team could be excellent. But like Paris seems like a safer pick, but at the same time as well, like I know I've underestimated Paris enough times to know that they can absolutely upset a team above them. Um, yeah, they got an 8-8 record, and yeah, half of that is through wins that were pretty easy, to be fair. But they have also beaten the Justice. Justice have also beaten them. This could be a pretty spicy matchup. If anything, I my read from this is I think Washington are confident. I think they're confident enough that they probably don't care who they face. And
Yep.
maybe the Washington playoff spots could be there. My gut feeling wants to go with Washington. I don't know that I have a brain take here because I don't know what the teams are actually going to run. It's hard because I think these teams could run pretty even. I think to me it's actually coin flip. If you're going to ask me what my real thought on this matchup is from an analytical perspective, it's a coin flip. But I think my gut feeling is that I want to back Washington just a little bit more here because I think they'll do well in an open meta.
Fair play. I like Paris's ability to flex. Obviously, they've been a little bit more stable throughout the season, but yeah, this one feels a little bit more like I'm down on Washington and less high on Paris, let's say. But yeah,
Look, I will also say, if I could choose who makes it, I would say Paris. I just want to see the chaos, man. Like,
yeah.
I think they also deserve like to have a good way to go out of the season. That said, I mean, all the other teams do as well. I think for how well the Outlaws played this year, I don't think they have gotten the recognition that they deserve. I mean, yes, they could have made it out to Hawaii, but yeah, I don't know. Why are you looking like that?
No reason.
Do you have some bullshit pick in the next round or something?
Gonna have to see.
Oh my god, this man is once again bullshitting. Like, okay, let's see. What's the other match in that first round?
Boston, Toronto. We want to move on to Boston, Toronto. You about to talk about them?
Yeah.
Boston, Toronto. Boom.
Ugh, that's like the same team against each other, right? Like, not really.
Really?
Because it's like...
Okay, look, I understand Baroy has worked for both teams.
No, it's more like, like same level of performance, not really big distinguishing factors. Yes, they're very differently built. Like, one is Philly Fusion plus some, and then the other is like basically a bunch of rookies and then also a bunch of old guys coming back. But I think they're pretty evenly matched. think that's a perfect coin flip for me. I do think Toronto sort of peaked late, but that's also mostly a meta thing for me. I don't think that's necessarily anything that team found out about themselves that they were able to unlock. I don't saw reasonable progress over the season. It's not a Paris situation for me.
Agreed. Yeah,
And
the feeling is there. I agree.
it's also, can I just say subjectively, that's just a boring match to me. It's probably the most boring match left in the season.
Careful. This is the sleeper. This is the pick.
Oh my.
I think this is the big stylistic clash that you're going to see. If my meta projection is even remotely right, and you have teams that are interested in running a little bit slower tempo compositions, and equally as such, that dive is open in its full glory, I can see Boston being a bit slower. I don't think completely going Atlanta route and just only playing bunker and double shield is going to be Boston's MO, but I see them doing that, and I view personally Toronto as a dive heavy team, let's say. So I think this is going to give you a lot of interesting little interactions, interesting matchups depending on map picks. That should be a good showcase for the meta as a whole. I think this is it looks. I agree. The mouthfeel of these two teams isn't great.
Why you gotta be like that?
Hey, I'm high on things. I get it. I only describe through food and taste. So it needs to have a sprinkle of things, a dash of this. I think this is a slept on match. I think this is going to be a good one.
Shout out to viewers of
Aside from that,
ContraPoints.
So wait, hang on. You believe this should be a good match, or like a really good one?
I don't know if it'll be a really good match, but I think this will
close
show.
game.
Yeah, close-ish.
A good game.
Good. Yeah, I would say this is the game to watch. If I gave you, if you were to ask me which game if I'm new to Overwatch and I want to get excited about the game.
Shouldn't Paris Washington be close good game?
No.
You don't believe that? You don't buy that?
Not
Really?
the slightest.
You don't do that? No.
No.
I mean,
No.
mine would
I
be
would've
like
thought that would
whoever
be-
plays Shock. That would be the
Really?
interesting one, yeah.
Oh, shouldn't Shock just murder whoever wins anyway? Like, shouldn't that be the thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No, you don't. Okay, well, let's finish up Boston, Toronto, and then let's move into Shock then next.
Yeah.
Boston, Toronto. Yeah, this is another. I think Toronto have had higher peaks recently, but part of me wants to back Toronto here. I think they've had a higher peak recently.
Yep.
I think Hisu Aspire, like a great 2 DPS plays. Hisu in particular just really farmed on Hangzhou. I don't know how big, by the way, Hangzhou is going to be in the next meta. It wasn't our last meta. But now that we're exiting away from Hangzhou and Orisa comps, well, we'll actually probably enter double shield a bit more, if anything. Who knows? I think Toronto are probably one of the more slept on teams. And whereas Boston is also slept on, but maybe more accurately so. Is that unfair to say? I'm not too sure. I think I'll give this to Toronto. I think I'm more willing to trust that Toronto can win this game than Boston can. I think Boston's last Boston Countdown Cup was very disappointing for me, and I expected Boston to do very well in Countdown Cup. At one stage, I was even like, dude, Boston can maybe go 4-0 here because I was quite high on them, and then they kind of bombed out. They gave Vancouver the first one. Like, fuck me, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling great about Boston in that kind of regard. Maybe that's not the most analytical take, but again, because it's hard to go on. Like, what do we have to go on? Really, we don't even know what the teams are going to be playing. We have a good idea that the teams will be moving back towards double shield and brawl and different variations of dive and a bit of ball here as well. But I've seen higher peaks from Toronto, and I think that if they can do that again, and those high peaks have happened recently, if they can do that again, this should be a pretty clear win for Toronto. So that's why I don't know that this is going to be a that good of a game. I think Paris Washington should be a closer game, personally.
Do you not expect, for instance, like in the past in no European metas, for Valentine to bring Genji back? Like whenever.
Oh yeah, I expect it.
Yeah, Genji is buff too. There is that. You're not wrong about Genji.
I don't know that
Genji,
it's.
I don't know if I trust Genji though, because here's the thing: Genji forces you to play Anna Winston.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I don't necessarily agree that Winston is super weak. You guys seem to think Winston's really, really weak. I think Winston's actually okay in the meta.
I
Yes.
think you can play it. I don't know how
But
much
I
mileage you're
think
gonna get out of it.
Nano, I think Blade, I think Genji, did Blade get nerfed by the way? I think it did. Genji
Yes.
is a bit of a crutch, and Nano Blade is a crutch.
Yep.
And I just generally think that Genji is a very feast or famine, not just hero, but the entire team comp it brings to you, the entire play style you have to play through ends up being feast or famine because of that as well.
Yep.
So I'm personally not a fan of teams relying on Genji because I think Genji is probably the most unreliable hero. Like he is the hero that will not give you good, consistent results. You'll get very high highs and very low lows. So I don't know. I don't
agree.
know that Valentine Genji is going to really do it for them unless we get into a Genji meta where it's like pretty agreed upon by most teams that Genji's pretty good here. You should play Genji. If we go into a hard Genji meta, cool, Valentine will carry you here.
Yep.
But I think more than anything, Boston probably play Valentine on the Echo again, see how that goes.
Yep.
But
That's my big question.
I still back Toronto. Do we want to talk about Shock now? Now might be a good time to start exploring the Shock. Who do you think Shock should pick, and could any team put up resistance? Yiska, you did not actually think Shock could walk over anybody because my assumption here is that no matter who plays Shock should probably win, right? And you disagree with that?
I don't think no matter. Like if okay. I think Shock are smart enough to not pick Washington if they were to get out. I think that's possibly the strongest matchup they could be facing, and they're like if they make it past Paris, that once again that's a qualifier that like you should pick Washington. You just don't take the risk. The on paper skill set that team has and has displayed in the right meta is just too scary. It's by far the highest skill ceiling of all of the like lower bracket teams, so to speak, or like first round teams. I think Shock might be nuts enough to do that though. I generally think like Paris is the second most scary team there, and they should not pick either of the teams that come out unless we get conflicting information based on the performance of the teams, of course, and then you decide on match day. Like if Toronto comes out and just looks stellar for some reason, then you're not picking them, of course. But it's also a preparation thing. Like you gotta theoretically like Shock has some agency in the amount of teams they need to prepare for. I think they could. And the problem for them is there's no safe lock. I think none of those matches are out of 60-40. But like for instance, they could say, okay, we're likely to get Boston, for instance, so that we're looking at them mostly, and then we're like, if Boston is available for pick-in, then we're doing that. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I mean, yes. Shock probably like against Toronto or Boston. That's probably a safer one. But I'm not too convinced that they would make that choice.
I'm not gonna lie, I have that completely the opposite direction. I thought it was very funny that AVRL had like mentioned that this was going to be direct seeding because that's how I have it. I think Shock takes the winner of Paris Washington regardless. For the record, I have.
Why? You guys are way too low on Washington, by the way. Like you are.
I said Washington was gonna win. What are you talking about?
I'm sorry. Like Joe is way too low on Washington.
Yeah, you're right. I am.
He like if you were to make a power ranking list, you would probably have them like just above like Mayhem at the moment, right? In NA.
So instead of third to bottom, the fourth to bottom.
Yeah.
What do you mean? So instead of 10th place, 9th place, that's below Boston.
This
by the
team
way.
has not shown me anything to prove otherwise.
Yeah.
They have given me one good play-in performance and narrowly lost, which they look great in. Commend them for that specific performance. And then they immediately follow a stage where you see a very clear line that they can take that many other teams took. Obviously, hindsight's a bit of a drug here. And they don't do it. They actively choose not to do it, and they probably showcase their worst performance yet. If you want to kind of spin that into motivation, sure. I think you have a lot of ground to cover if you're Washington Justice.
but I think they have the potential to cover that ground. I think Shock probably dodge Washington. I think that's a smart move to do. It actually no, I don't know that for sure. I think it depends on how both teams look
Totally. Yeah.
in plans. If we assume, I mean, we'll use this as one example. Washington wins, Toronto wins. Shock. Who do you choose between Toronto and Washington? On paper, probably Toronto, but I don't know if I'm confident in that because it would seriously depend on how both teams look in their match versus the other side.
100%.
Because I think Toronto have peaked higher than Washington recently in the Countdown Cup, but I don't know that will happen again with an open mid. It's very hard to say. Dude, oh man, it's hard to do anything but just do like pure speculation here. But I still think Shock is the strongest team out of all 6 teams in NA for the play-ins. So if there was a team that I think should be a lock for playoffs, to me it's a Shock. Does anyone? I don't know if anyone disagrees with that, but
nope.
No, theoretically, in most cases, but I think Washington has the potential to be the strongest team, as does Houston.
They are punchy. Justice, that is. I give them that. I'll reiterate a lot of the same points, so I'll save you from that. My big question is which of the schools of thought kind of is most predominant or has proven to be most successful. I'm more to say that the dive variant, this meta is probably going to be more successful. And I see Toronto being that team to be the best pilot of the teams that we've seen thus far. So I have Toronto dodging Shock. I think they're going to look the scariest. So I have
Toronto versus Houston.
Yes, I have Toronto versus Houston. I have Shock versus Paris.
Okay, let's dive into Houston a little bit. So Houston, the other team, they obviously get whatever scraps is left behind after Shock have picked their opponent. And you have Houston, Toronto lined up because you believe that Shock will pick Washington. I mean, we can play both sides. Okay, Houston. Are we pretty convinced, by the way, it will be Toronto, Washington, or do we want to explore like a Houston, Paris, or like a Houston, Boston kind of thing, or maybe that's going too far? Maybe we just stick to Washington, Toronto for now. I don't know, but Houston. Why don't you talk to us about Houston, Toronto? Because that's the matchup you have online, Joe. You have that one written down.
No, I have Houston. Yes, I have Houston, Toronto. My mistake. Yes,
so
correct.
What's going through your head in that game?
Okay. I'm going to ask you guys a series of questions that I'm very interested to hear the answers of.
Right.
Yes or no? Okay. Yes or no question?
Yes.
Just said yes right away.
Correct. Do we like Houston's dive this season?
I like Dante on dive.
No.
Okay.
I see Houston as more of a double shield, Piggy on Sigma type of team, so I agree with you.
Right.
It's going to be a no from me.
100%.
Yeah.
Also correlates with Happy's hero pool. There's a lot of reason to suspect non-dive play. Let's say. Do we like their main support situation this season, gentlemen?
Yes.
I don't hate it.
Okay. Interesting.
Oh, sorry. This is a yes or no.
That's fair. I mean,
I've not been answering yeses or nos. I've been answering pure gray area, haven't I? I guess yes. Then I guess I lean heavier towards yes than no. So it has to be a yes.
With those,
where is this going to, Joe? Where is this going?
Those were the only 2 questions that I think really sum up my feeling around Houston. With an open hero pool, again, knock on wood, hopefully my projections are correct. I don't see Houston really being successful outside of a very limited pool of compositions that they can run. They have not shown me that they can run dive at a playoffs level. And I'm talking about the teams that are in the playoffs currently. I don't think if you put them in a dive mirror versus any of the teams in the playoffs that they will beat them. Taking into context what I said previously about Toronto and Toronto being the better dive team, I do see Toronto besting Houston because of their limitations. They're going to be pinched in this meta unless they come out with some crazy shit that I'm not expecting, which is very likely the case.
Genji.
Could be.
They look at the patch notes, they're like,
possible.
what's good? Soldier Genji, boom, lock it in. Jake
I
comes
am
back on the legs, he locks on the legs, and boom, that's Houston for you right there.
I am concerned for this team. I would feel heartbroken for them if they did not make an Hawaii appearance, right? Just a singular Hawaii appearance. They've come close before. They've gotten kind of screwed with their opponent draws. I think they're going to get screwed again. I have Toronto making the playoffs.
Will they get screwed again? They've been screwed in the past because they've played teams like Dallas.
Yeah,
Here, you're literally playing the teams at the very bottom of the league that still exist that are not called Vancouver and London.
correct.
Like there's no better chance. There's no better shot for Houston.
I
that you
agree.
could possibly get.
This is their best chance. I don't think the meta suits them. I think they're going to be screwed by this meta.
Okay.
Well, do you not think they can play their own style down and succeed that way?
I think they can, and I think they're going to. I see them playing a lot of Jake Brigg. That's kind of where the main support discussion was, is like, they don't have a Lucio. What are they going to do? Like, they don't have a dive composition that they can call upon. If they play dive, that means Jake's playing Lucio. Is that really what we want to see? I think they're probably
Wait,
going to.
Is Jake playing Lucio?
Is Juby like at
Is
Disney
Juby not
World
the Lucio
or
player?
yeah?
I don't see them playing
Is he
Juby, to
deleted?
be completely honest. I don't think
Wow.
that they've looked good. And I don't think this is, I think there's a lot of growing pains there. I think there's a lot of intangibles that Jake brings to this team. And I think the record speaks for itself. I think there is going to be a very definitive style that Houston wants to play that Jake fits right into, but that
Sure.
limits them.
Sure. I'm just disagreeing that they don't have a Lucio.
Fair. I mean, yes, they have a Lucio. Will he see playtime though?
I think they shouldn't. I think they like if they what does Houston want to play? Houston wants to play
They wanna
Piggy
play
on
double
Sigma,
You're hot damn right.
right? Like they want to play Brig with Jake most likely.
Mm-hmm. That already points you in a direction.
Can I tell you the two comps? I can tell you the exact two comps they want to play
Go for it.
based on their history. One is a straight double shield of Rissa Sigma,
Mm-hmm.
App Brig, all that kind of good stuff. DPS is kind of whatever. They'll play whatever works there. And then the other comp is the Sigma Ball. This one's like less flexible in terms of like where you can run it. So Piggy Sigma, Django Ball, I assume. And then what do you play here? Brig Zen, I believe, is the backline for this. So Crimzo Zen and Jake Brig. So in both these compositions, two things are consistent: Sigma, Brig, and those are two things that Outlaws want to run, right? So yeah, those are the two comps I see them playing the most.
The only other thing I'd add is Happy's hero pool in dive metas has been pinched, and I feel like that was showcased beautifully during Countdown Cup, right?
Can I be real? I think he plays Soldier. I think they play Tracer Soldier.
Yes,
Happy Soldier.
and I think that's what you probably have to run. I think that's going to be their best look, and that's the only look that I feel like we're gonna get.
Who? Maybe it's enough. Who knows? I've seen
Again,
teams
yes, agree.
in this league, Dallas and Chengdu, notably the two of the teams that have the least flexibility.
Mm.
Yes, you heard me correctly. I'm not talking to you guys. I'm talking to the audience. Chengdu, one of the least flexible teams in the league, and they get away with playing like very few things. Ironically, they have the most flexible player on their DPS, but they have the least flexible team overall, which is funny. Not because of Leave, it's because of everyone else. But yeah, I mean, I think you can one trick. You can like 1/2 trick a comp and make it work. Like I don't think you need to be a team that has to play everything. Let's be real. Shanghai don't really play Brawl.
Oh, of course,
Chengdu
yeah.
absolutely don't play Brawl. They couldn't do it to save their lives.
100%.
And Dallas don't want to play ball. And there's plenty of stuff that all these teams have succeeded despite like their limitations. So
Don't get me wrong. I agree.
I don't get you wrong. I think Houston, if they try to 1/2 trick a composition with Sigma and Brig, I could see it working if like the meta direction is decent in the playoffs with the patch in consideration, and that you need some good maps going your way as well. And I mean, okay, Havana exists for double shield.
I think.
Yeah.
I think you can try to make it work. My last point with dive, I think it's way more proactive. I think you get to dictate the pace of the match of itself. I think there's a lot of things that go dive's way. And out of the 4 teams coming in from the quarterfinals, I see Toronto piloting that the best.
I I see Houston playing like a more hybrid version of Dive, where they play one hard hit scan with a Tracer, because you want Happy on one of his good heroes. You want him on Ash.
Totally.
You want him on either Hanzo or Soldier. Soldier's going to be great on the next patch. And you want Dante to be your Tracer. That's literally what you want. And so I think they play some variation of that with Ball, Sigma Ball, I guess. Yeah, why not? That's Houston. I think Houston. I would favor. I would still probably favor Houston and Shock still both making it. Maybe I'm less confident on Houston, but I think I've seen enough good games out of Houston where they've had tournament runs ended because of like one of the literal best teams.
Of course, yeah.
That now when their options are like Paris, Washington, Boston, Toronto, it could happen. The only way this doesn't happen is if Shock dodge Washington, and Washington are actually really good in postseason, and Washington just have this a Cinderella story again where they they sweep through and Houston are just in the way and they just shoot Houston out of the way because Washington's on a rampage. Like that's a scenario where Houston don't make it. Let's move over to APAC. I'm pretty sure we're all set now over talking about what's happening over in NA. First game, Hangzhou Spark versus Philadelphia Fusion. Both teams will be getting to play the team compositions and the heroes that they are very good on. And I think both teams suffered heavily in the Countdown Cup because of their limitations via hero pools and team comps based on the restrictions. Yes, both teams were disappointing. They both sucked in the Countdown Cup, but I think the hero pools really screwed them. And now with an open meta, I think both teams have a real strong chance of having a second wind. Thoughts?
Big agree. Yiska, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the angle of meta. There's also for Fusion in particular. There's the angle of getting their team together, which like the integration process. I talked to Christopher. Like it's always a challenge. Like if you got your entire European squad over in one go, then you could just reintegrate and then be done with it. But the trickle was pretty lethal for them. So, and we saw like arguably like the Shockwave integration was also very slow because of that, right? I think theoretically speaking, in my mind, there's no doubt that Philadelphia Fusion is the favorite here. I think, as I said like last time, I think the trajectory that the Spark had is so volatile this year, and there's no real factors other than the hero pool that could like make me optimistic about them, which fair enough is a good argument, especially if you get shot. Ooh, my bad. Get shy on one of his comfort picks. I think the Mika like coolest thing is probably not helping them either. It sucks what happened,
Really?
like what MCD. Like I still remain that MCD was the second carry of this team throughout the year. So yeah, I don't see how that team improves drastically in the play-ins. I think that's a pretty safe one for Philly here, and I hope they make it clean 3-0. So they like it's almost what is required in my mind in order for the following match to be competitive.
So they can look good versus Seoul before inevitably disappointing their fans versus Seoul again. No, that'll be good. I for one truly do hope that Philly beats Hangzhou Spark so that we get the miserable again between Philadelphia Fusion and Seoul Dynasty. Also, yes, I will be casting that APAC play-in game
nice.
with Achilles. So we will be running back the miserable, the insufferable, or as we called it on the day, the spaghetti bowl. There's a lot of great names for this matchup. This is Seoul versus Philly. Oh, it's a classic.
Yeah,
it didn't become a classic until recently, but my goodness, is it a classic because somebody wins, but somebody loses really badly, and that is always fun to watch. Whether it's Seoul fans crumbling or Philly fans crumbling, that shit is tasty. And so at the end of the day, really, I win because it doesn't matter. Whoever loses, I still win. That's the best part about this. So I would like it for that matter. I wouldn't mind Hangzhou versus Seoul, but okay, that memes aside, analytically, what do I think about Philly versus Hangzhou Spike? I think Philly have on paper a far stronger team. You're right, Yiska losing MCD is going to cost them for sure. I think MCD has been really good player, a good player this season. Coldus has been reasonable so far, but I don't know that he's good enough. Like, yeah, they lost to the Guangzhou Charge in their last game. I don't know. I don't know if Hangzhou are good enough. Like, this entire team requires Shy to like hard carry more than what Leave has to do in the Chengdu Hunters, because at least Leave has like workable parts around him. Bro, Shy just does not. And I feel bad saying that because Gushui's on this team and he's a fucking great Winston player. Maybe if they go back to Winston comps, could be good. I don't know how good Coldest Anna is. He's a Zen guy apparently.
Yep.
But Gushui's been playing mostly ball. All of last stage he played ball. So they're probably going to play ball comps. They're probably going to play Ash, Ball, Briggs-Zen. That's probably what they're going to play. I think Philly have more cards in their deck, high quality cards as well. I know they haven't gotten those to work sometimes, but I mean, bro, if there's Philly have to live up to the reputation of their team at some stage. They have to live up to the reputation of their players. They got such good players on their team. I can't believe that they haven't been able to make this work. And now that we're in an open meta, really, there's no excuses. I think Philly should win this game. I think it would be possibly the greatest Philadelphia Fusion moment if they lose, which I'm all for, by the way, because the memes will be hilarious.
Oh,
But at the same time, bro, they should win. They absolutely should win this
yes.
game.
This should, like Yiska said, I'll echo a lot of the same points that these guys made, so I'll spare you that. I have this going 3-0. A lot of the same reasons. Spark look like doo-doo. Fusion at least can field a lot of the compositions that I think are going to be meta. And yeah, it feels like a formality that we just get the spaghetti bowl, as AVRL said.
All right. So let's for the fun of it, maybe address both sides. I don't know that would be too. Actually, no, we won't address Hangzhou versus Seoul because I think it'll just be the same thing, right? We just repeat the same things about like, yeah, well, Seoul should just beat Hangzhou the same way Philly should just beat Hangzhou. So really, it comes down to it really comes down to Seoul versus Philly being the VT'd matchup. I think the most exciting game of all play-ins. Move aside Paris, Washington. Move aside Boston, Toronto, and any other variation of who Shock and Houston end up playing. Doesn't matter. The insufferable, the miserable, the spaghetti bowl is the game you cannot miss. That's the fucking game right there. And you better believe I'm going to be on my money on that day. On Saturday, I'm going to be on my money, and I will be poking and prodding both fan bases, really squeezing at the tip of where I think they're going to feel the most pain. And I'm going to opt. I don't know who's going to lose. I don't care who wins. I only care about who loses this game. That's what I care about, guys. And oh my god, I will milk that shit until for all time. Whoever loses,
You're the
get
worst.
you ready. I disagree. I think I'm the best at this. What I do, I'm the best. There's no better person to cast the insufferable because if there is a way, I can get tears out of these fan bases better than Onions could. I'm telling you that right now. Yeah, so that aside.
I mean, you're getting tears out of me with Soul games as well. Anyway, all season already, so.
All right, this could be and should be a close matchup. Should be a very close matchup.
Should be.
It's Prophet versus Carpe again, maybe, or depending on who
we know how that
gets
goes.
run where.
We do know how that goes.
Does it usually go in Prophet's favor? I think it does. Oh,
Yeah.
does it?
Yeah,
It usually does.
it does. Remember season 1?
Since season 1. Yep.
Oh, by the way, last season, Seoul knocked Philly out of playoffs, didn't they? In that game. Yeah, they did.
Oh yeah.
So we kind of get like lower stakes version, but still pretty high stakes because one of the teams don't make it forward. And once again, it comes out of Philly versus Seoul.
That was that.
To keep their season. That was at 3-0 as well, right?
That was that dog shit fucking Philly running Winston when it was very clearly like Roadhog was like the hotness.
Yeah, and just to farm the fuck out of Philly for it.
Yeah.
That would be the most gesture thing, by the way. He just shows up to his computer, just puts his like 5-pound rings individually down on the table. The table is shaking, and he's just like, "I got a world-class ball, by the way," and they just go to town. Like that would be the most gesture thing I've ever seen. Yeah.
All right, who do we have for this? What are we thinking?
This one is probably the closest for me in terms of a 50-50. I have not been very big on Seoul coming into reads. I do give them a lot of benefit of the doubt because they're going to have a little bit more time, not by much. I see them more like a Justice. I think a lot of the same points that you guys drew up for Justice, I see for Seoul. And I think this does come from that DPS line. I see playoff Seoul in full effect. I think they're going to come out and play very, very well. I think this is a team that's going to probably trend downwards as playoffs goes on. But I do have Seoul advancing probably 3-2 over Philly. Pretty much on the back of that DPS duo. Simple as that.
Wow. Profit play up. It's literally playoffs profit now.
Yeah.
It's literally playoffs profit time, right? Like we've waited a whole year to get to the playoffs, and profit's like, all right, it's time to start trying.
Yeah.
Should I turn on my monitor now, guys? Should I start trying?
Yeah.
Should I take the weights off? Yeah. What do you guys think? Yeah. Okay. That's playoffs profit for us.
To be fair, he hasn't been bad this season.
No, he hasn't. And Seoul have been excellent this season, actually.
Yeah.
I'm really tired of seeing him on May, I will say. Put the boy on Tracer, please.
Tracer or Echo this season as well. Like that's,
you
by the
go.
way, a very underrated point. Like, do you guys remember? Like,
Yes.
basically
I do.
everyone was like, "Profit is the goat," and as soon as people finally said it, I was sitting there. Oh my god, have I done it? Have I won the hill? And then it's just like Profit gets on Echo, and I'm like, no. All the work I've done over the last years, this looks like hot garbage, dude. Please, like there were plays. Once again, I've probably said it on the podcast like 5 times. There was a Hollywood map that just destroyed my soul. Where he played
Just
Echo.
flanking on its own, trying to get health packs. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was
So-
sad.
This season he looks crisp on that. Like I think he's second in kills per 10. Like generally doesn't overcommit too much. Like he's in feeding. He generally carries pretty well. So if they were to play that, the problem is once again they want to in this manner they almost want to clone Profit. Right.
And what meta do you not?
I mean, probably in like McCree stuff.
You guys are like hard sleeping on Fitz here. What do you mean clone profit?
Dude,
Fitz is
that's by the way one thing that I'm like, no, Fitz wasn't the better DPS player this season. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. Fitz was not the better DPS player this season.
No, shut up. Shut the fuck up, actually. I'll do you one better.
he has been super fucking good. You
He
got
has been very
Yes.
good, yes.
It's been phenomenal this season.
Not better than
He's
Profit
had
though.
What a big turnaround.
Wait.
I think both have been good. I think those two players have carried the fuck out of that team.
Yeah.
Good enough to make roll star, Yiska?
For Profit? No.
Yeah.
Nah,
Aw.
but because that role is stacked, bro. Like, I think I didn't get Kevster. I would have taken Kevster over Profit this year.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. Kipster would have been my next pick. I still think about whether I should have chosen Kipster instead of Sparkle, but whatever, it's done.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. To me, Seoul Philly, bro.
It's tough.
This is a really hard game. Oh,
It's gonna kill Souls as well. Like,
Unironically, yeah.
ah,
Like these are such high potential teams. You look at like playoff peak
God.
Seoul. You look at playoff. You like they have the roster finally together. Shockwave's integrating. They have the time. The meta's open. They have the pool. They've been the most stylistic APAC team probably this season. Is that enough? This is a tough one.
I need to go back and watch that Seoul versus Philly game again.
Which one?
The latest one, the one where Seoul made it to
Oh.
Hawaii and Philly
That one
didn't.
wasn't good.
Oh, what do you mean? It was a great game. I love that game.
I'm sure you did, you little torturer.
But yeah, dude, I'm just fucking, what is it? Just waterboarding the fan bases of both teams. yeah, I don't know. Like even looking back on that game, like I think Philadelphia. I'll say what I said when I cast that game.
Mm.
Philly have the better support line. Seoul have the better
Oh.
DPS line.
Yep.
And
But what say you tanks? Yeah.
tanks. Okay, I'm starting to remember the game now. There was a lot of Zarya being played. Two
Yep.
got hard to by hot on the Zarya. But Philly relied way too hard on the Zarya to try and carry them to the point where at the end I was like, bro, they need to stop playing this. This is not working anymore.
Mm.
The other thing actually was that Animo and Creative showed up big time in that matchup. That was
Yes.
part of the reason why, because usually Animo Creative look a bit underwhelming.
Mm.
That game was Philly. They were fucking good. They were really good actually.
I think Creative's definitely ramped up over the season. I think his Countdown Cup performance was actually really, really solid. Like probably one of the standouts.
The thing is, the thing for me is that Seoul peaked in Countdown, even though they got farmed by Chengdu later on, as we found out in Hawaii, which I don't think anyone was super surprised by. Seoul peaked in Countdown Cup in terms of where they were, because obviously they made Hawaii for the first time, but it's not just because of that, but like how they played versus Philly, like it felt like all 6 players were pretty good that game.
Mm.
Even with 2U getting diffed on the Zarya, that's fine. 2U goes diva, and he's a really good diva. That's what he does. Philly looked disappointing in Countdown Cup. Okay, they won games, but then they still just can't quite get across the board. Do I dare be a Soul Warlock and just place my trust in Soul? I mean, who did Philly even beat? Philly beat Hangzhou, easy. Philly beats New York, to be fair. I mean, maybe that could have been a New York win. Who knows? Philly lost to Seoul. Reverse sweep as well.
Yeah.
Tragic.
Yeah.
What else did they do? Oh, that's right. They beat Shanghai when Shanghai fucked around as well. So,
Yeah.
do I trust Philly? Probably ever so slightly less than I trust Seoul. So I'm gonna go with Seoul.
I think this Twitter situation is going to be fire. By the way, it's going to be a 3-2, and whoever wins, the Twitter will just be like typical team, typical X, like because it is going to be typical to lose 3-2 in close fashion and like peace out of a tournament situation. To be fair, for Seoul, maybe less so. I think like it would feel worse for Seoul or Profit rather to not make it to playoffs. Or Profit and Gesture, I should say. Even though, I mean, season 2 kind of was a bummer, but yeah.
It is what it is.
So Yiska, I assume you have Soul. Did you say it? Yeah, I can't remember if you said.
Yeah, I think I'm taking Soul.
You have Soul. What did you say, Joe?
May I sway or attempt to sway any hearts and minds for Seoul fans and maybe give some hopium to the Philly Fusion fanatics out there. If you look at Seoul's Countdown Cup road, that does not inspire a lot of faith. They open with a reverse sweep against the Hangzhou Spark, who we've just written out of play-ins. They immediately obviously beat up on Valiant. Haha, nice meme. They lose to Shanghai, who's taking a break. Obviously, that's Shanghai still, but
close
with
one.
less practice. Close one. And then they beat Philly. Is that something that gives you a ton of confidence?
See what I did there? I had the twice in there. That's just there to push the buttons of the Fusion fans a little bit more. Just be like, twice, by the way, just 2 times back to back. Reverse sweep was one of them.
He is actually the best at it. He is the best at it.
God, I know what I'm doing. You should see my tweets when Philly when Philly don't even play, and I got fire tweets out there just bullying the Fusion fans. Like, bro, Fusion didn't even play and they still lost somehow. It's fucking funny. Yeah. Look, I think both teams have had great moments and good moments and a lot of bad moments. A lot of bad moments.
Yeah.
Tasty. A lot of bad moments, but
tasty. It's tough. This is a tough one.
Do I want to see Carpe in playoffs or do I want to see Profit in playoffs? The two most decorated in terms of like how long they've been, two most veteran players.
Yeah,
there you go. That's a better word.
One of them is decorated.
Yeah, decorated at all. Profit, rather, on the other hand, is quite decorated. 2 of those veteran players in the entire Overwatch League, and one of them is going home early.
Are we I don't know how I just made this comparison, and I know you both probably will get this reference, but I may need to do some explaining. Is Carpe our double lift?
No, because Double Lift won lots of shit.
Well, later on he did.
This guy like won. How many LCS titles did he have? He had like 4 back-to-back as well, some shit like that.
But
He is one of the most winningest players of NA of all time.
he began his career and was for a long time haunted by the fact that he had not won anything. Yes, he eventually did win things, 100%.
So if Carpe then in the next 5 years of Overwatch League, because Overwatch 2 is going to be a great success.
Smash
we're going to get a minimum 5 more years of the Overwatch League, with Overwatch 2 being the best game ever. Carpe then wins 5 stage titles over the course of the next 5 seasons.
I think that's very possible.
If that was true,
And
I'd be very upset because I missed my chance to Travis Gafford that situation.
How is Carpe in Germany? So just like,
Oh,
God.
you could have played like for
hey,
E United or something.
you just go to Carpe like, look, man, I don't have great. My mum doesn't have great internet, but I got a couch, I got a bed, you know, I got a PlayStation 5. You like those, huh? You like that?
So your FaZe FaZe has some money. They're throwing some money around in Valorant. Why don't they maybe buy in one of these slots that maybe up for sale, and maybe they make a.
Used to play for FaZe. You know, he's an ex-FaZe player.
I know that's the point. Yeah, maybe they bring him back. Maybe they do some things in Europe. Maybe win a stage title or two. Yeah, I think the comparisons are
that's trajectory, by the way. It's kind of wild. You think about it, Carpe's his sort of his movements through different teams. He goes from
BK Stars
to FaZe Clan,
getting dumpstered by Taimu.
He's just like that's where you go. You go from BK Stars to FaZe, like boom, there it is. You're in the money, and then you're on Fusion. You're the highest paid player in the league in season 1. Like you're bigger than Sinatra's 150k. Bam, you are like you're actually winning. You are winning in all aspects except for the part where you actually win the Overwatch games. That you are otherwise winning. So again, guys, I'm very good at this. The Fusion fans are loving these comments right now. I'm very good at this. So. I don't know. I don't have much. I'm just memeing right now. I don't really have much else to add here, except that I think it's going to be a great game, fantastic game.
I think it's going to the distance.
So let me, closing thoughts. Let me ask you guys one quick final question. Out of the teams you have predicted to getting out of play-ins, of those 3 teams, who do you think does the most damage in playoffs?
Of which in APAC?
Of the teams, in total, NA and APAC, that you have advancing bracket-wise. So the predictions that you.
Which of the 3 do the most damage? Shock.
Which of the 3?
Shock.
Okay.
So
Yiska?
Hans finds a Widowmaker meta. It's over. It's over.
Yeah, I'm not ready to write off Shock yet. Mine would be Shock as well. I saw some magic coming into Countdown Cup. They obviously didn't make it, but I saw the light. I'm not ready to give up yet.
Who they lose to? They lost to Glad.
Yeah,
they
look good.
Yeah, team that won the whole tournament.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
That's not bad at all.
Very narrow as well. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Shock is definitely. Yeah, I think Shock is the reasonable answer. My answer is Seoul though.
Christ.
Yeah.
Is Arnold paying you money behind the scenes? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean,
wild.
You still haven't decursed me, dude. Like, you cursed me in the preseason, and I'm still on it. Like,
the only way this could be worse is if you put like all Seoul Dynasty players for your role stars.
Yeah.
I had 0.
I'm surprised you didn't do that. I'm surprised you didn't do that.
No, I hate them all because, like, my Preds, like, if you look at the accuracy of my Preds, there is not a worse team than Seoul this year. Like, it's actually insane how bad I am. Like, whenever I'm trusting them to do something, then they're not. And then the other way around, when I'm like, okay, I'm not going to trust Seoul again, then they just like beat Shanghai or some weird shit happens where it's just like, oh, come on, get lost. Like and it is your curse. It is.
Sounds like projection, but okay.
He's the best at it. What can I say?
All right. We've got a lot to look forward to.
Yes.
Hopefully some real news on Overwatch 2 in the future. When I say real news, I'm talking like Blizzard releases, they have a press release. They give us an update. Team 4 gives us an update. Something to work on, something to chew on.
Mm.
All, all hopes and prayers for Thursday's internal meeting, whatever's going to go on there for all the decisions being made. Our hopes and dreams and livelihoods quite literally rest upon it. So, Godspeed, and I hope they make the right decisions for everyone. And then I'm looking forward to play-ins. Obviously, I've already talked about it, but I'll be casting the Eastern Division APAC play-ins, the Hangzhou Seoul game, and then the Hangzhou Philly game, and then Seoul versus the winner of that. That'll be my final cast of the year, of the season. Well, of the year for Overwatch League, sure, but of the season for Overwatch League as well. So I'm gonna end it on a big bang. Hopefully, it will be. I would love nothing more than to end my final cast of the season on the Insufferable. That would make my year, and I pray that it will happen, so that I
You're
can
the worst. You're the worst.
so I can finish it on the best possible game, my best possible cast. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. Next episode as well. Hopefully there'll be some. I don't know what are we going to talk about next episode. I don't know. Find out. Stay tuned. Subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Catch you later.